You'll stand for the pledge. Move it a little bit. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. Welcome to the October 13th, 2015 meeting of the Village of Rhinebeck Board of Trustees. Thank you everybody for coming tonight. We have a special evening. We're going to be doing the ceremonial swearing in of Trustee Bassett over here. He missed the first shot at it, so I'm sure that's why everybody's here, and we really appreciate that. Gary, appreciate your support. So we have Judge Sanchez going to take care of the swearing in for us. He's on his way out as we speak.
I'm supposed to keep it clean, right?
Keep it clean, yes.
Don't say anything personal, will you?
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Gary Bassett,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to uphold the Constitution of the United States,
to uphold the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of New York,
the Constitution of the State of New York,
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of village trustee
of village trustee
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you, Judge. Welcome, Gary. Just so everybody knows, Gary was appointed to fill an open seat back in August, and he's been hard at work ever since. Just missed the ceremonial opportunity here. So, moving down our agenda, we do not have the county legislator with us this evening. I think they had to schedule the county meeting because of the holiday. So we're going to start with, and normally we're jumping around a little bit, but we're going to start with the wastewater headworks project. We had put out to bid a project there, and because Brandy Nelson from Crawford Associates, our engineering firm, is here this evening, we're going to start with that and then go on to the next piece, which also involves her. So, Brandy?
Thank you, gentlemen. So, who you want me to go to?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Very formal. Thank you for having me. I'm Brandy Nelson. I'm an engineer with Crawford and Associates Engineering. And we just recently bid a project for the sewer plant. It's a corrosion-resistant shed to go over the headworks pit. Don't know to what extent you're all familiar with the sewer plant, but all the sewage flows into an open concrete pit. And over the last few years, the operator, Mr. Rathjen, has had a lot of problems maintaining the system through the winter, especially in those colder months of January and February. What he sees happen is the temperature of the wastewater drops, and it's affecting the performance of the plant. And in addition, the headworks has a lot of mechanical equipment that seems to suffer in the cold. And so the operator, Mr. Rathjen, has been constructing a plywood and rigid foam insulation cover over the top, sort of like a lid. And it's very difficult to work in there. He has to remove the lid to do any sort of repair. So in working with him, we put together plans for essentially a garage structure that would sit over that open pit, provide him the access into that pit through man doors that go down into the pit, and overhead doors that allow the crane to operate to pull the equipment out. That has been designed over the last couple of weeks and was out to bid at your last meeting, and we've gotten the bids back. We had 5 bids received, and I believe you have a letter in your packet that summarizes the bids. Let's see if I've got a letter in my packet that summarizes the bids. So the letter is from our office. It's dated October 9th. There were a total of 5 bids received. The low bidder was Meyer Contracting at $196,900. There were 4 additional bids from Transitional Builders, $200,943. Above Standard Construction at $209,669. One Way Construction $217, $952. Aventus Construction, $248,000. We've reviewed all the bids in conjunction with the bid documents, and we find that Meyer Construction has a complete bid provided. All of the bids came in higher than our estimate. We've talked to Meyer Construction about where some of the differences are, and just verbally, because there wasn't a schedule of values that broke out each section of the project, he cited 3 particular reasons. The first being that his electrical sub gave him a number that was 3 times what we estimated it. So the electrical that we estimated was around $13,000. He said it's going to be more like $45,000. And he's saying that that's based on the explosion-proof nature of it and also the short time frame for the work. We were hoping to award this very soon and get the contractor completed before the end of the year so that the operator can operate this winter undercover as opposed to having that lid. The other item that he gave us that was more than we had estimated was the aluminum grating for the floor of the pit. There's about 144 square feet of aluminum grating, and he's telling us it's about $19,000. That actually seems very, very high to me. Just looking in catalogs, I think you could do a lot better than that, but that's something that we could talk about with Rich. There is some opportunity, if you choose to award tonight, to negotiate some certain items in that contract. The aluminum grating might be one we'd want to talk about because it's about $20,000 worth of cost. Other than that, Meyer Contracting has a complete bid, like I said before, and if the board wished to proceed with the project, we would recommend going with them. Does anybody have any questions?
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Did the other bidders, did they have a lower electrical work?
We didn't contact them individually to talk about the various aspects. We focused specifically on Meyer, who was the lowest bidder.
Our bid form didn't ask for them to break out those costs.
That's correct, yes.
So it's substantially over our estimated budget.
That's
by
correct.
70,000.
Yes.
Is it essential that this gets done before this winter? Because it's been this way for how long?
This is true. Yeah, we did talk about that a little bit. There's probably a 10% premium on getting this project done before the end of the year. So if we reject all the bids, which is fully within the board's purview, and rebid it through the winter for, say, a spring project or a project that could be done, at some point through 2016, that's definitely a possibility. We could also go back and we could rework the bid and do a bid form and break out all the various elements and see if we can identify what item seems to be triggering the contractors to have such a high price. I mean, it's very surprising to us that the price was as high as it was because there's no concrete work, there's no site work. So they're not digging up anything underground. They can see everything that's in the pit. There's no new foundations that are going in. It's really framing and wall materials, roofing, and very small mechanical systems and some electrical. So.
I think that one of the reasons why the timing was significant or important to us was due to the fact that last year with the very harsh winter, a pump might have had a failure and we couldn't access it to replace it until warmer weather arrived. So I know from Peter's perspective, this is high-ranking, ranks high on the list of things to do. That being said, it is significantly over what we estimated the cost of the project to be.
Did our RFP stipulate a timing for completion prior to the end of the year?
We did ask it to be done prior to the end of the year, yeah.
One other issue was the odor. We had odor complaints over the year, and through the DEC, one of our mitigating plans was to build this structure and include some odor-reducing components to it, which has been engineered into the structure.
Right.
So that was part of our plan of action or plan of correction with the regulatory authorities to mitigate.
That's correct. The system does have, or the building does have a very robust ventilation system built into it. Anytime you're taking an open pit that's receiving a lot of liquid and covering it, you're going to create moisture. So we've got a very robust exhaust fan system.
It's got like charcoal filters or something? Some kind of
No,
filter?
it's just a matter of the amount of changeover. It ends up being more of a dilution factor.
Okay.
Well, I would ask the board if I could work with Crawford Associates to rework the bid and maybe provide some value engineering so that we can get it closer to our budget. And maybe we could do that in a week's time so that we could maybe award it and get it done this year.
I
Well-
second that. I know it's not a motion, but I second it.
I mean, there is an issue of just timing to put it out to bid and give the contractors time. We gave them 3 weeks. That was probably the shortest bid you would want to do, even if we rebid it. If we're willing to gamble on the winter being mild, I think that that's doable, but we may want to revisit the issue of construction completion date and have more flexibility in that.
So your suggestion would be to rebid it and break it out?
No,
No.
not rebid it. But maybe ask for more information, backup information to these bids so that we can identify where there might be some higher costs besides the electrical and the aluminum grading. And also be able to provide some maybe alternative materials or means and methods to maybe bring the cost down.
The contract documents, and be something we want to discuss with Rich, do have a provision in them. It's in Article 5, and I had tabbed it thinking this might come up, where the owner can make changes to add or deduct work. In this case, because we don't have a schedule of values to start with, it becomes very much a negotiation with the contractor in good faith. So, if you were willing to participate in that with us, we could sit down, but I believe that we can't begin that negotiation until an award would be made. So, I don't know if, Rich, if you've got a...
Brandy, what is our time frame for, our drop dead date for having to start it, would you think, to get it completed this year?
Well, I mean, there's no concrete work. So, normally your construction is going to be predicated on, when's the last time you can pour concrete. It's winter, December is a gamble. You never know if you're going to have a mild December or a cold December. I don't think that the construction time period for this is probably more than 4 weeks altogether. It's a pretty simplistic project. It doesn't have any long lead time items on it. That being said, you do want to give your contractor some buffers to allow for weather conditions. So I think we're getting close to being right there at the drop dead date if we want this project to be done by the end of this calendar year. If we've got some flexibility in the end date, I think, the whole schedule can change.
So just to be clear, we could award the bid and then negotiate with the award winner, particularly on the items of the electricity. We could pull the electrical piece out or the aluminum grading out.
As long as you've awarded it to the lowest responsible bidder.
Right. And that's not what you're,
Well, no, that's not what I'm suggesting
Okay.
just yet. I mean, we could certainly get to that, but I think in order to award this, I think we need some more information. I think that's an issue that we didn't ask for it already.
I'd have to go back through the bid documents at this point.
Yeah. Well, maybe Rich and I can have a conversation about what our options might be outside of what I'm suggesting here. I mean, my only other thought would be to reject the bids and rework the bid form and then rebid it, which would put us into a mid-November start date if that's what you wanted to do. In which case, I would say that we need to be fair to the contractor and tell them that they could finish come spring as opposed to this winter. I don't know if it gets them to a point where they could get the framing piece completed and then put poly sheeting over it, just so that Peter's got a semi-enclosed space to work
What would
in.
be the weather-dependent work?
Not really. I don't think that there's anything really that challenging. It just depends on if it's very, very cold. I know last year we had,
But there's no real painting, that you said there's hardy siding.
There's hardy siding
Which could be
and
pre-painted.
FRP
That's
inside, so
the
there's
easy
not
part.
that.
Yeah, so there's nothing that's really
Right,
weathered to paint.
yeah,
So we could have an enclosure.
we could,
Probably, frame, and a roof.
yeah. So I mean,
It's just such a big difference between what we thought it was gonna be and
Right.
what we ended up receiving.
So we want to rebid it.
I think what Scott's proposing is to kind of look a little further into it first, if possible.
Ask for more information from the
So,
bidders.
yeah, because
Okay.
I think what we got, because I didn't get to see the bids, but what we did, appears to me, is that we got lump sum bids.
we did,
We have
yes,
one
that's
number
correct.
and no identifying the cost of each scope of work. And typically, bids are broken down to 16 different divisions.
But we
You'll
didn't
be able to-
request that under the original bid,
I
so
know.
to go
Right.
back and do it now, it's, I mean, your best bet is to simply reject the bids and rebid it if that's the way you're gonna need to do it.
You know, to put a schedule of values together is not a challenging thing. It's not gonna change the specs, it's not gonna change the drawing. So we could turn that around, you know, and have it back out on the street next week. But this would be something we'd wanna maybe talk about then, either at your November meeting or at a special meeting sometime between now and then. I can revisit the schedule overall and I can get that to you, in the next day or two if you'd like.
You know, the flip side of it is that the three lowest bidders are all within a pretty
Yes.
reasonable range.
Yes, I agree.
So, you know, that tends to make me think that perhaps our initial figure was the thing that's out of whack a little bit, and maybe not so much what's being, you know, proposed by the contractors.
But to Scott's point, it may be useful to see where that number is coming from, and maybe we make a design change based on that. So, you know,
So if you took 30, if Meyer Contracting said that their electrical number is 45, we thought it was 15, and we're able to somehow get it to 15, 30 off of 196 is 166, which is really 40,000 over our initial budget.
Yeah.
So it's a lot better than 70.
But you've either got to award the bid to the lowest contractor and try to negotiate down from there.
You're a hostage then, so it's not.
I agree. I don't think it's a favorable position for the village to be in. I think if we want to look at the numbers more closely, we would recommend just rejecting these bids outright and reissuing the bid with the schedule of values on the bid form so that you
We
can
can
see
do that
them.
now, right? Make the motion to,
Just reject the bids.
I'm only one opinion, so I mean, you
Yeah.
guys,
Well, my thought was I wanted to pull the pieces out of them, and if we could just separate like the electrical piece and the framing piece and award a bid based without that information, and then go out and just rebid those pieces.
But you don't have individual components to it, so you can't.
Right, we don't have those pieces in the way the bid is structured now. When we were looking at this overall, we made a judgment call to bid this as a lump sum, believing this to be a small, pretty
Simple
simplistic project, not needing a full schedule of values, but that's not the feedback we've been getting from the contractors.
and I would agree with you, at 126,000, you wouldn't care. I mean, not that you wouldn't care, but you wouldn't need a breakdown of 16 divisions of work that were 1,000, 2,000, 500. So, but at 200,000,
Right,
maybe.
right.
And what was the difference on the aluminum grading?
Our estimate was about $4,000, and the contractor told us it was $19,000. Yeah, you know, honestly, Peter could order it from Granger for probably $4,000 and have it installed. It's just extremely convenient while the operator is there, or while the contractor is there with heavy equipment and cranes and things like that, to have that set, as opposed to Peter and his crew struggling to install that themselves. But it's 144 square feet, so that's a significant square foot cost.
and you could have it put out to bid next week for us?
If you want to rebid it with those schedule of values, we could do that, we
Yeah.
can put it back out next week.
I don't see this as being that weather dependent,
I don't either.
so.
Okay. I'll make the motion to reject the bids and put it out to bid again with the schedule of
Values.
values.
A second.
Discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you, Brandy. So our first public hearing, and I know we have a list of people that signed up to speak, but I'm assuming it's split between the different public hearings. The first one is for the community block grant, which we're looking at a project at Legion Park at Crystal Lake, and basically we need to have a public hearing and seek public input before making the application to the county. It's a county-administered, federally funded program. So we have a Parks and Recreation Committee that's been working on a plan, a master plan up at the park. And we're going to present that to you, and then Brandy is going to come up again and present the piece that's specific to the block grant and application being due on Friday. So that puts it first on the list today. First, I have Trevor Saxa. He's one of our committee members, and he's responsible for coming up with the sketch that you see up there for the proposed park improvements, and that's an overview of the master plan that will be hopefully phased. So Trevor, how about it?
So back in the spring, he got a group of us together to form the Village of Rhinebeck Parks and Rec Committee. And our initial major focus was the restoration of Legion Park right along 9, to enhance the existing park and kind of make it the gem that it used to be, from what we've seen from digging into historical documents and various photography that we have from earlier in the 20th century. We came up with a basic concept at this point for what we would like the park to ultimately be like. Like he said, we'll have to phase it, mostly due to funding. So as funding becomes available, such as this block grant that we're discussing now, we can start putting the components into place to form a community hub for the Village of Rhinebeck that we'd like to see occur. So the initial phase includes restoration of the area adjacent to Crystal Lake, which people currently enjoy, and the addition of 2 handicap parking spaces up by the water, so that the lake and the amenities up there would be easily accessible. And one of the major features that we're looking to add in phase 1 is a bridge that traverses the existing dam, giving us access to the eastern shore of the lake. And then eventually we would like to tie into the existing island and the other section of our property along Rockefeller Lane. So ultimately we'd like to enhance the entire space, tie it together, add some various amenities, including structural components such as bridges, pavilions, and a formal entryway. I guess, Brandy, if you'd like to discuss the specifics of phase 1.
I have plans that I'm going to show on the easel, but I have extra copies. All right, so tonight, the proposal is for the village to apply for a community development block grant through Dutchess County Department of Planning. Every year, the county makes several $100,000 available to municipalities throughout the county for a variety of different types of projects. The Village of Rhinebeck is eligible for projects that address handicap accessibility and ADA compliance. And so working from the master plan that's been put together by the Parks and Recreation Committee, we've looked at a first phase for the project at Legion's Park at Crystal Lake. And that would consist of a number of different elements. The first would be, as Trevor had mentioned, 2 handicap-accessible parking spaces that would be right up at the lake. And the remaining gravel area up next to the lake would be reclaimed as more green space where trees could be planted. And then the creation of ADA-compliant stone dust pathways. Stone dust is just a compacted, fine granular surface material, along with some benches and, normal things you find in parks like recycling receptacles, et cetera, that would run parallel to the lake and down towards the dam. And then the idea of putting a bridge across the dam has sort of a twofold component. One is to provide a safe, accessible crossing across the dam. Currently, there is no means to get across from the west side of the park to the east side of the park. And that dam just invites people to walk across it, whether you want them out there or not. But in addition, it provides an opportunity for a really great fishing spot where you could have basically a deck sort of cantilevered out over the end of the lake to provide an opportunity for people to really have one more use out there at the lake. We've talked about this application with Dutchess County Department of Planning. They seem very supportive of it, especially in light of the fact that the village has been doing work to make this part of a cohesive master plan. And obviously there's no guarantee that anybody's going to get anything, but I think it's a very good application and they've been pretty supportive of it thus far. One way we've been exploring doing more with the grant application, the maximum amount of money that the village can ask for is $100,000. The bridge we've got contemplated is a prefabricated bridge. There's a variety of different options. We've gotten some pricing for one that is made of steel with wood decking, but we just needed something as a placeholder for the grant. But that can be explored as you get further into the project. But we've also talked with Heath and with John about how the village can leverage some of your own force account to do some of the work. So in the application that we'll be putting forward to the county, we'd like to encourage and we'd suggest that we really emphasize what the village can do as far as reclaiming that gravel area as green space, possibly doing the paving, maybe doing some of the tree planting, things like that, so that the county shows that the village has a real vested interest in this and is really committed to the project. So. We are working to draft the application, but we won't be finalizing it until the end of the week. It's due into the county on Friday. And they make their decisions in the springtime. And they typically award in June or July. And then you have about 15 months to complete the project. Okay. But part of the process is to have public comment on this. So that's probably the next thing. And then there's also a resolution in support of the application if the board chooses to proceed.
Thanks, Randy.
Do you have any questions about the project?
And any estimates on any of the bridges here?
So the Contact Core 10 bridges come in somewhere between $55,000 and $65,000. And then there's some additional concrete work for abutments. It's probably in the $20,000 to $30,000 range, which would leave hopefully $10,000 for the stone dust pathways. And if the village forces could do the asphalt and the reclamation, that would be the balance of the first phase of the project.
Does our request for the grant have to define where we intend to spend the money? So, I mean, it's obvious that this project is more than $100,000.
Correct.
And so, do we have a priority as to where we would spend it first if we get 10, 15, 25, or 100?
It has to be for an ADA accessible portion of the project. So there are a couple of options for that. We'll give them the full project budget, and we will state in the grant application the intent for the village to complete certain aspects of the work themselves, and then you get a certain value out of that. We would like to suggest that the grant be for the bridge to provide both the fishing access and the access across to the other side of the park. And so I think that's what we're leaning towards as far as recommending.
Great, thank you. So I'd like to make the motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
Discussion. All's in favor?
Aye.
anyone out there want to comment on this proposed project and the proposed grant application?
Is there gonna be a fence along the waterway? Like years ago, they had that fence so you wouldn't go down on the dam. It was the link fence that was totally across, and everybody used to walk along that little bridge, and it was slimy to get to the other side. So is the bridge gonna go over that?
Yes,
And is there gonna be a fence to block people from falling off the bridge, or?
Oh, it has railing.
Yeah, the bridge itself has railings, and in this first phase, we probably just look at gating the end of the bridge at the east end, the far side of the bridge. But then there would be a future phase to create additional trails on that side of the property. I know what you mean, there's a steep area in there, and we have looked at maybe some strategic placing of some fencing just to provide some additional security in there. But as we get into the details of the design, we would
You're talking about people walking right across the top of the dam, and that's what people do now.
That's
And
what
it-
we used to do.
Yeah, and there used to be chain link, which is no longer there. So this would replace that, it would give a safe passage across that.
But is that bridge, is gonna have a railing, can somebody get up on that railing and?
I don't think you can prevent anybody from jumping.
No.
Right. No, it's not gonna have, like what you see on the bridges across the Hudson, like the suicide bridges and fencing, it's not gonna be like that. It's gonna be wood, or steel fencing, and then it would have little cutouts, and there's kind of, almost little table platforms, so someone in a wheelchair could wheel up to there and fish off of there, so they would have a place. Any other? Yes, sir? Right now, we are looking to continue it as a dawn till dusk park. So it was lit in the past, years and years ago, they removed the lighting, so possibly in the future, but right now the plan does not call for any new lighting. Anybody else? Anybody up here?
How far above the present dam would the bridge be? How far up would it be, like 3, 4
Because
feet?
the detail that we would need to get into, that element of design has not yet been put together. But we would work from the village's most recent engineering assessment of the dam, just to make sure that all clearances were being accommodated, so that the hydraulics of the dam weren't affected. We did look at making sure that the bridge actually spans the entire dam, including the emergency spillway, so it's about a 70-foot structure.
It's
So
not
do-
reliant on the dam to support it.
That's correct, it's not sitting on the dam at all, it's on abutments on either end.
It would sit high enough so that if the dam and the earthen dam on the parking lot side were breached, that the water would go under the bridge and not take it with it.
Does this also help facilitate getting to the valves, to open and close that any easier than what they are now?
I guess it would make it slightly easier, but that's not,
Not the purpose.
right. So without any further comment, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
So I'd like to make a motion to,
It's just a form resolution that's submitted to the county acknowledging your participation in the fiscal 2016 program, the fact that you've had a public comment for the citizens, addresses the concerns, and that it would be submitted by authorization of this board.
okay. So a motion to submit the application per that form.
That's it.
Second.
Discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So our next public hearing is going to be on the proposed changes to the sidewalk sale portion of the code. Scott, are you gonna? No. Are you gonna set this one up?
No, what do you want me to do? Read it?
No, just give a summary of what we're looking at changing there.
All right, yeah, I can. Currently, our code is written in a way that each merchant can apply and obtain a permit to have a sidewalk sale up to 15 times in 1 year. And over over the past year, we've seen different applications come in here, and it was a new application for this board, even though the code had been written for some time, but this board hadn't come across it. So when we started to think about it, we thought if there's a merchant, each merchant could do this 15 different times, and if they all did it at different times, we could have a perpetual sidewalk sale. And we thought that that probably wasn't a good idea, just because our sidewalks are fairly narrow, and if it wasn't really a coordinated effort, then it could be messy and it could be mayhem. So we started talking about it and different discussions here and there, and we came up with, well, let me say this, the chamber has organized sidewalk sales, which we thought is really the way that the sidewalk sales should be set up, is that they're organized, orchestrated, they come in for a permit, we know that they're taking place. We consider all the different things that will go on, whether it's we need additional police coverage or whatever it may be, but at least we know that it's going on and we know that it's well-run. So we talked to our attorney, and the attorney, with our guidance, put together what we think is probably the best for the village and for everybody, is something or a change in the code which allows for sidewalk sales, but coordinated sidewalk sales. And that's what we have before us today. There's no other real change to the code. There's lots of elements in that code that still allow for exterior displays, which still is in place and is not changed. I think not everyone knows about the exterior display, and so maybe I think there's some confusion over whether people can still display their merchandise outside, and that they still can, and it's not. You don't need a permit for it, and it's not considered a sidewalk sale. So I don't know if I've explained enough about that.
I mean, essentially, we took the old code and we basically just removed individual license permits. Now it'll have to be through one of the organizations.
And just to reiterate, section 89.5, which exempts certain displays, those are the small displays that are permitted in the code, that are allowed to be there all the time.
And that was in the old code.
Right, that was in the old code, but there was some confusion, and I know when we put this out for the public hearing, there were some questions regarding that, if there were going to be any changes, and the proposed law does not have any changes to that section. So I'd like to make the motion to open the public hearing in regards to the sidewalk sale proposed change.
I second.
Discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
So would anybody from the public, if you wouldn't mind, come on up to the microphone and identify yourself and for the camera. And
Scott, thank you. I think you gave me a big clarification what the difference was with the law that was drafted in 2008 and what you're now proposing. I do have some other questions of clarification, but they're very specific to the department store, so I won't waste your time on it right now. And I just want to thank you all for making, and I think it's great. Frankly, we don't want to do more than 2 organized sidewalk sales a year. It's so labor intensive. The weather doesn't always cooperate. But I just want to thank you, and I think whatever questions I do have, I can address at a future date. But thank you for your efforts.
thank you. Paul?
Paul Niederkorn, I live at 132 East Market Street. I have some very specific questions as to what this applies to. Does it apply to the Taste of Rhinebeck in any way? Because I see there's a piece in the law that says you can't sell food in front of a store unless the store sells food. Now, in front of the department store, I think it was the Rhinecliff Hotel has been set up. So would the Rhinecliff Hotel not be able to set up in front of the department store, or is that something totally different?
Oh, I believe that's an event, and I think that's something.
Okay, so that's not a sidewalk there.
They come in for an event permit to hold an event in the village.
Okay. Other questions I have is the garden club has a plant sale at the CVS. Now, with respect to this law, is the area right in front of the CVS store considered part of the sidewalk, or is the sidewalk really out by the road?
Well, I would say the sidewalk is in the village right of way.
Well, because some of the law says something, it's not very clear when I just read it as to what exactly you mean, any way that the pedestrians get in and out or whatever and so on. So it wasn't specifically clear to me whether or not it would apply to the plant sale that the garden club has at CVS.
The definition was never changed from the prior laws.
Right.
Well,
And that's held clearly on the CVS property.
Okay.
Back by, I'm asking.
It is.
It's
I
back
guess
by
it
the
is,
entrance.
but the law has something about essentially ingress and egress or whatever and so on and so forth, and I don't know.
I can say this, Paul, it's not our intent to limit those kind of not-for-profits for having Girl Scout cookie sales or. plant
Okay,
sales of
so
those
the
type
Boy
of-
Scouts selling their wreaths are not going to be,
But it wasn't never any of my intent to limit those or
okay.
change the way that those.
I'm just saying though, when the law is written, the law is passed, the
No, I
law
get
is the law, and, it should really apply to everyone if you don't make exceptions somehow. Yeah, the Boy Scouts sell wreaths and they sell pumpkins, right, at various times in
Where-
front of the
where-
CVS, and that's pretty much on the sidewalk, I think, where they do it. And the last question I have is Julie over here with her shop. Is she on the sidewalk or is she off the sidewalk? She has an area in front of the store, is that? Again, it wasn't clear to me reading this,
Right.
that area in front of the store, whether that's really considered part of the sidewalk or
Well,
not.
according to the law, it says it has to be within 3 feet of the building.
Of the facade.
Okay, so
Facade, so.
she is going to have a problem with whatever.
Well, let me say this, is that I think the intent here is not to impede, and mind you, we may have to rewrite some of this and clarify it. So the intent here is not to block the sidewalk. We have narrow sidewalks, and
Okay.
the outside displays, even whether they're the merchandise displays that are allowed always, or they're part of the sidewalk sale, they're not to go beyond 3 feet from the facade of a building. And they're not to impede the sidewalk, they're allowed to, they are to allow a pathway of 3 feet, a minimum of 3 feet, to and from.
Yeah,
other businesses or
but
inside of there.
she's got a building that really is quite a way back.
Right,
Yeah, it's not adjacent to the sidewalk.
but mind you,
No,
I think
it's not,
the building
it's not
doesn't
directly
abut the
adjacent to
sidewalk.
the, depending how you define sidewalk, I guess.
right.
Anyway,
Well,
those
I
are
think
the
whole idea
questions I
here
have.
Really is also, regardless of how big your sidewalk is, because there are other letters that we receive from other merchants and building owners that have larger sidewalks who think that they should have more than 3 feet
Yeah.
of display. And the intent is, there's 2 things here, is that we don't want giant displays of things, and we also don't want to impede the walkway.
Yep.
And so, that we did our best to address that. I don't know whether we need to.
Well, I just wanted to make sure you had all these things in mind when you did address it. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Lila?
Hi, I'm Leela Pegg from Winter Sun and Summer Moon, and I agree with Barbara. Thank you. It's great. I do have a couple questions. When you're talking about the sidewalk sales, are you saying that all the racks would have to be up against the building during the sidewalk sales, or can they be the way they've been, where there is a clear path down the center?
The code reads that there's only to be 3 feet from the building facade.
So
even in the case
then
of the
you'd
sidewalk
have to
sale.
block your store windows to put racks up and block your visuals. That way you can't put anything on the curb? Is that how
Well,
I'm
that's-
interpreting this?
There's been no change. That's the way the code's always been written.
No, for sidewalk sale though.
No, that's, yeah, even in the case, if you could have an individual sidewalk sale, or whether they were a coordinated sidewalk
The
sale.
coordinated.
I'm just, the code, we didn't change that code, that part of the code here, so it's always been 3 feet from the building.
Okay.
So.
So
if
does
we
that
were
mean for
to-
the last 27 years I've been doing it wrong?
Yeah. If we were to enforce it, I believe, John, correct me if
Does
I'm
it
wrong.
say that in that section?
I don't think,
Winter sun and summer.
Yeah, I think you were next.
It's 89.4 reads.
89.4.
It refers you back.
He said I was next on his list.
Right here.
No, that was, according to the way the code is written, your setup is in violation.
For the sidewalk sale.
I think, you didn't.
It makes you go back here.
Oh, that's not.
Why is this changing this year?
I think it has to change some year. It has to be updated.
So if
Well-
everybody chose to do their independent sales at the same time, they would all, it would look the same as if they did a coordinated sale. I think that's what you're getting at. I mean, what's the
No,
benefit?
I'm only talking about sidewalk sale. That's the only thing I'm interested in is the sidewalk
No,
sale.
I'm talking about sidewalk sales, but if you participate in Enjoy Rhinebeck sidewalk sale or a chamber sidewalk sale, I think what your question is, if you're participating in that, can we put up our merchandise closer to the street
Yeah.
and configure it differently? If, on the other hand, you were to just go and do your own sidewalk sale, which you're allowed to under another provision of the code, you would be within the confines of this 3 foot from the facade.
Right, that I understand. If
Yeah.
you're
And then-
putting a rack out on a sunny day and it's not a sidewalk sale, it has to be within 3 feet of your,
Yeah, and I,
but I'm talking specifically about sidewalk sales when
provision hasn't
the
changed.
merchants line both sides of the street. We leave a pathway, and I'm just trying to get it real clear if that's not an option for this.
What we could consider here,
Yeah.
and I get what you're saying, so I just reread the code, and that's the way it reads, it's 3 feet from the facade. And so any displays that are further than that really have been in violation. But if we're talking about having coordinated sales,
Yeah, that's all I'm
then
talking
maybe it's
about.
something else we could consider. is
It's an
having them-
event.
And having
It's
them on
really
the
an
other side of
event.
the sidewalk, as long as there's another provision of this code that allows for free and clear passage of 3 feet. So maybe if we talk about having coordinated sales, and then having displays can be on, during these sales, be elsewhere on the sidewalk, as long as they provide free and clear passage.
Okay. And then another comment or question, it says one bench, where did I see that? Is that what it's
That's it.
There's a single bench outside of the premise,
But you
Is
have
that-
multiple buildings. You're-
so it's each storefront. Okay,
That's the way I read it.
okay, perfect. Barbara?
May I come back just very briefly? I
Thank
didn't want
you.
to get into specifics, but I did take the time, and I guess I do need some clarification. I took a survey of our building, and I put a vellum over it, and this is what we do on those 3 intensive days. We put a table, a rack, that's all within 3 feet. But then I was under the impression we had to be 12 inches from the curb. This is, our corner is unusual in that there's no parking there anyway. And these are where we put racks, and I didn't want to get into specifics because I thought it wasn't the night to do it. But now that you're saying it only can be 3 feet away from the building on organized, Enjoy Rhinebeck is not going to do any sidewalk sales. It would be under the auspices of the chamber. And those would only really be 2 times a year, although if the sky falls, we may need a 3rd time. But do I leave this with you then and submit this?
I think
for
that we
discussion?
just talked about this.
I just have to mention something.
Okay.
My department, John Fenton, zoning enforcement. So what's happening is Karen and I are fielding a lot of complaints from visiting customers. And so the primary complaint is that when you have a busy sidewalk with people browsing and shopping, it's preventing other people from getting by. Some people, when it's really busy, are forced to actually travel into the street where it becomes more dangerous. So I think the objective is to kind of consolidate the merchandise along the facade of the building, let people walk by. Some sidewalks are real tight, some are massive. But I think overall, the concept is to try to get the merchandise tucked into the building area and open that up for passerbys. 36 inches is the minimum width that's required by state.
And we need more than 36 inches of clear passageway. As a matter of fact, if my gals put out a rack that is wider, perpendicular to the sidewalk, no, we make sure that it doesn't
Right.
go into that. So that's
So-
where I need clarification.
All right, and what's happening is Rhinebeck's becoming more and more touristy, and we're receiving a lot of complaints. So instead of coming out and just handing everybody violations, we're trying to be more neighborly and soften. We're trying to make a strict code, but we have to strictly enforce it. And so this is the start. This is where we start, how we get everybody out in the public, know what we're doing.
Should I submit this to you?
No.
No, but you know what I would think, though? You know, in the case that since we're limiting now these events, that I wouldn't be against having displays elsewhere. Right. And as long as they left, free and clear passage. I mean, I think it's a give and take.
There has to be some benefit to merchants participating in those organized sidewalk sales. Otherwise, the way it is now, if everybody one day chooses to put out merchandise at the same time, not organized, but it looked the same as if it was organized, other than not having PR leading up to the event. So I think that we need to review that to see if there's some way that we can have an added benefit to organizations that are going to be conducting a
And if it's a
sale.
planned event, you want the streets to be crowded. It sounds like the old parking issue to me. It's like, anyways, you want the streets to be crowded, and you want it to be full, and you want to be packed, and I think everybody does take caution to make sure that they're safe.
Well,
So
while we're-
for just the chamber-sponsored sidewalk sale events, it'd be nice to be able to make it look like something's happening.
Yeah, we've had comments of people saying sidewalk sales aren't what they used to be. People aren't putting enough out for us to even bother coming to Rhinebeck Village.
Yeah, that's the most common complaint.
Well, while we're working on this, maybe we can work on the numbers, and maybe we need to leave 48 inches or 60 inches between the two sets of racks. Maybe you can have, as long as you're 12 inches off the curb, maybe 3 feet's not enough if you're going to have people browsing on either side, then that leaves, a foot to get through the sidewalk. So maybe if you had 5
To
feet.
be safe.
Yeah, so maybe there's a number in here, so some places maybe could have a rack on the curb, and maybe some places with, more narrow sidewalks would not, it wouldn't fit.
I was going to say, too, is I'm sure that this code was written at a time when Rhinebeck wasn't quite as popular as it is today. So probably changing that to a 48-inch passageway probably makes sense.
The other thing is, I think you need to get the planning board involved. Ultimately, that's a board that's concerned about how the village is looking. Their thought is, it's a walkable village. People leave their doors open, people walk around. They personally, and I can't really speak for the board, but I've heard them, their concerns were, if it's a walkable village, why does everybody need to bring their merchandise outside? And that's kind of like their thought process. So, but I'm not saying
You've
that,
been here in February and March, haven't you?
yes.
Nobody was here because the streets weren't walkable because of ice and snow. And we spend plenty of money to make sure the village-owned sidewalks are kept clear. We are farmers. We need to make hay when the sun shines. And so please take that into account. I don't know what Joel Tyner is trying to do right now with getting funds to come back into Rhinebeck Village, but we, as merchants, all of us, as merchants, collect sales tax, which hopefully comes back into our community. If we don't collect sales tax, then we can't bring it back into the community. And you're gonna have to raise taxes of people that may be complaining that they had to park maybe 20 feet away from where they wanted to park. So,
John, I think you're talking about times when they don't have their sidewalk sale. The sidewalk sale is different. People
Right.
expect
The display of merchandise
the
and so on.
displays to be out there.
Right. But I think the planning board should be involved to some extent.
For what?
The involvement of the, putting together the law,
Putting together the
sidewalk sales law?
sidewalk sales? Well, I mean, if I think that it would be written in the code. I don't know what the planning board would get involved with. I mean, if they want to do something more than the general merchandise display, I think that's the planning board's involved. They would be involved with that. But
Okay.
Or with their site plan usually approves the whole facade, right?
Yeah.
So that
I
means-
just-
But they wouldn't need site plan approval for a display of their merchandise that
Right, only
fits
if it was
within
a
this
new,
criteria.
a new or a change.
Right.
Okay.
Barbara, can I ask you a question? Does that have the amount of feet it is from the facade to the curb? Does it tell you on your sketch there? Just so we can get some kind of an idea?
I think it's 12 feet.
12 feet?
Scale,
think so.
scale on this is 1 inch is 5 feet. So this is more than 2 inches right there, so.
Yeah.
I
It looks like there's enough room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I try. God knows I try.
Any other,
Are there many stores on East Market Street? Because my thinking is, why can't you just close from the light to Center Street for the organized sidewalk sale?
I wouldn't think they'd want the streets closed. Sidewalks out.
that would,
That way you
Yeah,
have
make
more
some
room on
limits
the
about
street
that.
to display
That
your
limits.
stuff.
that would come in, what happens is when the chamber brings the proposal to us, it comes in the form of an event application, and then that would define exactly what they want it to do. If they want to close, like they do for Santa Claus, let's say, a portion of the street for a portion of time, it would come in that application, and we would have this similar discussion at that time. And it would go through the police department, the fire department, and they would have their input as well.
Thank you.
Anybody else on the sidewalk sale? So I think we'll leave that open and try to incorporate some of the
What you
issues.
should do then is you just adjourn it to the next meeting, and if
Okay.
there's an issue we need to address on that one section, we
Okay,
can revise it before then.
so I'll make a motion to adjourn the public hearing on the sidewalk sale change.
To November 10th, is that the next meeting?
I believe it is, so November 10th. That was a motion.
Second?
Any discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
So, do one of you guys want to work on?
We'll work together.
You work together, I like that, working together, to bring these comments together and bring them back for
We
us.
can work with Leela and Barbara.
Yes, yeah, you're going to form the informal committee. So the next one is the garage sale proposed law, and this would be a new law. I'll give a little bit of the background on that. We've had an increasing number of complaints from residents in regards to certain neighbors, I guess, that are holding perpetual garage sales or yard sales. So the issue being that this really no longer falls under what we traditionally consider a yard sale, but more of a business model. So that is what prompted us to bring this law to the public for the public hearing. And the way it's set up would require a permit from the village clerk for such a sale, and it would be limited. There's no fee for the permit, and it would limit it to 4 times per year. The thought there is that if someone wants to make more room in their house, they're getting ready to move, 4 times a year should allow pretty reasonable amount of time to sell what they need. And if you need more than 4 times per year, then it's probably a business, and by conducting in that manner, it gives them potentially an unfair advantage to those businesses who are paying overhead, occupying commercial space, et cetera. So I'd like to make the motion to open the public hearing for the garage sale, proposed garage sale law.
Second.
Discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Any comments from the public? Yes.
Good evening. My name is Frank Gaglio, and I live about 75 feet from where we're sitting. I wouldn't want your job for any price, but you're doing a great job. And I want you to know my comments, this thing is not even on. My comments are made respectfully. I love living in Rhinebeck. I've been a resident here close to 20 years, and occasionally I have a yard sale. I'd just like to say that yard sales, in my opinion and the opinion of many, they're as American as apple pie. And in Rhinebeck, I like to think that people come to this community because it's fun, they enjoy it, they come on the weekends, and when they come, for instance, for a yard sale, which may be advertised in the newspaper or on Craigslist, they come here and they spend money at the restaurants, at CVS, at all the local stores and boutiques, and I think yard sales are a way to keep the community active. I was very pleased to hear that there's not going to be a fee for these permits, but in reality, does the permit change the relationship between the person having a yard sale and their disgruntled neighbor? If a person can come in and apply for a yard sale permit, they're going to have the yard sale anyway. I think it would really make more sense if there were some guidelines, perhaps, for yard sales, instead of instituting a law which would kind of paint everyone in the community with the same sort of violation, that they're violating some law or some rule. If the board came up with some kind of guidelines, for instance, be courteous to your neighbor's property, number one. Number two, run your yard sale at reasonable hours. Number three, make certain that the signage that you put up is taken down within a reasonable amount of time after the sale. Something like that in the way of guidelines might make more sense, because you're also opening up a big can of worms when it comes to enforcement of these permits. And I read the proposed law, and though I'm not a lawyer, some of it was very clearly written, that the enforcement officer would have the right, as well as police officers in our town, which do a fabulous job keeping our community safe. They would have the right to go in to enter a home, and correct me if I'm wrong, they would have the right to enter a home if they suspect a violation of a permit or a yard sale. Wouldn't something like that require I forget what they call it, a search warrant? If they're going into someone's home looking for something to determine what a yard sale is? I mean, this is kind of sort of ambiguous, and it's kind of really muddies the water in my opinion. The other thing is, I think yard sales are a goodwill event. They promote goodwill in our community. Just on Monday, I ran the antique show at the fairgrounds just this past weekend. And as I was leaving, there was a young lady on Mulberry Street, a little girl, that had a little cold drink stand set up on the corner of her parents' property. And she was selling her little drinks for 25 cents. Does that constitute a financial enterprise where this young lady at 8 or 9 years of age would have to come in and get a permit to sell her drinks on the corner? Or is it just something that people do occasionally? Maybe an older couple would put some things out for a yard sale, perhaps to raise some money to pay their water bill, or to go to paying a utility bill. I understand, there's no question, there are certainly going to be people that violate every law and every rule that community enforces. There's no question about that. But if someone passes a stop sign, do we then issue citations to everyone in the community? How about this for an idea? How about exploring the possibility of dealing with these violations? And I'm curious to know if anyone can speak to one of these violations that's an ongoing yard sale in the community. I haven't seen any. There's one I see that's outside of the village, if you're heading south. And the other thing is, if anyone can point out to me that there's been an accident, a vehicular accident, as a result of a yard sale, I don't know of any. Perhaps the constables in town might be able to produce some evidence of that, but I've never seen anything that I can say was an incident resulting from a yard sale. Actually, the yard sales that I go to and attend in the village are really run quite well. They are not, as it says in this law, to do away with boisterous, loud behavior. I've never seen any of that. People run these nice little sales. They have fun. They have a good time. It promotes community goodwill. I just think the board should really, really look closely at this and see if it's worth going through this whole process of enforcing these permits. You're going to have the enforcement officer working on the weekend, with most yard sales are on the weekends and on holidays. Are you going to pay him overtime to go street to street to street, and then he calls police officers to come and enforce these permits? Our police in this town are doing a big enough job keeping our community safe. The yard sale is not that big a deal, in my opinion.
certainly if this board has gotten complaint after complaint after complaint, why not treat that like any other complaint in the community? If someone complains about a neighbor and there's a complaint, deal with it individually, as we do anything. If someone's throwing garbage on the neighbor's lawn, you don't go ahead and tell everyone in the village, all right, you gotta have your garbage in a can in a certain place. I suggest handling these things individually, using the power of the police officers in the community to enforce any of these violations between neighbors. That's really what it is, it's between neighbors. And I think part of what I love about living in Rhinebeck, I love my neighbors. And when I have a yard sale, I have yet to have one of them come over and complain to me. I put out a cone by their entrance to their driveway. It's a question of being courteous. And they come and they support it. Without beating a dead horse, I want to thank you for your time, and I hope you just look at this for the bigger picture, in that I think it's going to cost more money and time and cause more problems than it's worth. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to comment?
Excuse me. My name is John Verricchio. I live at 47 Violet Place. I'd like to say that I agree with the intent and what you're trying to do here, and to try to correct issues that might arise that previous speaker was talking about, that you could solve between neighbors or by calling the police. It doesn't work that way. Unless you have some sort of not necessarily a strong regulation, but just a procedure that people know what they should do and their neighbors know what is expected of their neighbors in order just to keep peace. There are perpetual yard sales going on in the village. I've seen them. I see they're 7 days a week. So there must be issues for some neighbors, and I think they deserve relief. I don't have any problem in my neighborhood. There have been some yard sales, and it's fine. But just to have a simple permit so that the police know where there are yard sales in case there are issues with parking, et cetera. And there are some issues which are not really addressed by this on Route 9, where there are yard sales and sales going on when there are events at the fair, when Mulberry Street is shut down. And there are parking problems then. So if there were a permit on record so that it could be reviewed by the zoning enforcement officer or by the police during the week, and they would know, and they could foresee and address potential problems because they could see where there could be problems. Whereas the general public doesn't until it happens, and then it's too late. It's on the weekend. So anyway, I think it's a good idea. It should be very simple, though. You don't need, like some of the things, the comments that were just made about issues and entering onto premises and all, which seems like a police state. You might not have to have it so drastic and draconian, but just a simple procedure so that you know what's going on in your community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Paul?
Paul Niederkorn again. Thank you, gentlemen. I know you have a thankless job, and I'm here to remind you of that. Can't please everybody all the time, can you? Anyway, I see no problem with yard sales in this community. I mean, we're on a busy street. People have yard sales. I really haven't seen anything that people would be complaining about offhand. And it's a great way for us to dispose of things that we've acquired that we no longer need. I think in our 40 years of being here, we have maybe purchased 2 vacuum cleaners new and 6 or 7 old from yard sales. In fact, Brenda just picked up one not long ago, and we got rid of our old Hoover that I picked up for $5. She got a new one for $4. I was putting it out front for free. You know, where we live, it's great to put things out front because they go away. And just as I was putting it out, somebody came by in a pickup truck and stopped and said, "Is that going to be free?" Yeah. So in this particular era and time, people really don't have a lot of money, at least some of us don't. Those of us who are retired, we're getting absolutely no interest on our savings, whatever savings we have. So it does help to be able to dispose of things, and also some people probably do purchase things in order to sell. But again, we have to pay our taxes. The taxes keep going up. Our interest that we get off our savings, this year Social Security is not going to go up. People need money, so I really don't begrudge anybody making a few extra dollars. And I submit for most people who are doing that, they probably aren't making any money anyway, because by the time you take your gasoline into account and whatever else and going around, you're probably not even breaking even. But it's a great pastime for many people. We've enjoyed many years of going to garage sales, of having garage sales. And I really think that the community should be supporting that. It brings people into the community. We have people, when we have a yard sale, we're now timing it with the Country Living, and they go to the Country Living, and they come and they stop at our yard sale looking for things similar, or even the dealers, like Country Living dealers, drop by to see if there's something in the yard sale that they can use. It just is a wonderful thing for everyone, in my opinion. And I don't really see the problem. And I don't know specifically if anybody's going to talk tonight in opposition to yard sales, but I don't know who should be upset. And as Frank was saying, is if there really is a problem, let's try a neighborly way of solving the problem. Maybe the village board could drop in on people who are complaining, or when they come and complain, and find out who are the offenders, and go and speak to the offenders and say, look, you're going to ruin it for everybody. You're going to make it a bureaucratic process that eventually will probably require a fee for a permit too by the time you're done. So it would be nice to try and solve this in a more neighborly fashion. Yard sales bring people into the community. I mean, this is, I'm sure, regarded as a relatively wealthy community, and people will look at the papers and see where they were on Craigslist and see where yard sales are being held, and say, hey, there's a bunch in Rhinebeck, let's go to Rhinebeck. And they'll probably stop here for lunch and maybe even buy something at the department store, and who knows. And with respect to getting a permit, it wasn't very specific in the proposed law about what the duration is. Yard sales, sometimes are 3 days, sometimes they're 1 day. Sometimes it gets rained out. Sometimes you hold it the next weekend. Sometimes you just wake up in the morning and say, geez, let's have a yard sale. You know, it isn't something you always plan ahead. And it's not something that you should plan ahead. So requirement to obtain a permit in advance, if it's not a pretty flexible kind of permit, is going to be an impediment to people having yard sales. And as Frank said, how is the new law going to be enforced? Are you going to have somebody on a weekend going around checking all the permits? Because the yard sales are on weekends, so you're going to be paying extra money for people to go and see who has a permit and who doesn't have a permit? Have you estimated the cost it's going to be to the village to have a permitting system? And I assume that probably once you do figure out what it costs you, you're going to start charging a fee. That's the way government works, right? Also, I see in the law that the not-for-profits are exempt. If there's a real problem, why is it that not-for-profits don't have the problem? I mean, it's only the taxpayers who should be penalized or controlled, not the not-for-profits and not the government itself. Also, I'm somewhat confused about the law's terminology. It seems to me that the questions about, it talks about a residential premises, a lot in which, I forget what the definition really is, but there is no mention in the law of dwelling units. So let's take apartment house. Village Green. How many units are in Village Green? How many dwellings are in Village Green? How many lots? There's one lot, and how many dwellings? So is it each dwelling that gets a permit? It has ability to have 4 garage sales a year? the way the law reads to me, it sounds like a lot and not a dwelling. Also, what happens if you have unrelated residents in a dwelling unit? Two college kids are renting a place like they are across from us now in one of Billy Clark's buildings. Now, I don't know their living arrangements, but the way family is defined in the zoning law anyway, it says living together as a housekeeping unit, whatever that means. I don't know what that means. But if you're two independent people who have their own budgets, they both have, say, kitchen privileges, but make their own meals, do they each get a permit? Or is it based on the dwelling unit? Or what is the basis of it? And if you really decide that something is needed beyond trying to use social pressure, maybe it would make more sense to say there are certain weekends in the summer or certain days or certain weeks or something where garage sales are allowed. Other times they're not allowed at all. So there's no question about getting a permit. And the enforcement is only cost you on those particular days that you have allowed garage sales to happen. Anyway, personally, I don't believe there's a problem. I think yard sales in general are positive things to the community. And if there is a real problem, the board should search for a less onerous solution than they've come up with. Thank you.
Got something new?
Thank you. First, let me say, over there, I respect this gentleman, sorry, sir, I don't know your name, my neighbor. I respect his opinion, and I couldn't agree with him more. If someone were going to be violating what seems reasonable and having consistent yard sale, I would probably be a little annoyed by it as well. I have guests and friends and family that come and stay at my home, and he's right to some degree. And I personally don't know which yard sales he's referring to that run 7 days a week. I'd love to know, because if you told me where they were, I'd probably go shop at it. But aside from that, again, Paul made several valid points as well. I don't want to belabor the point. You have a lot of things to deal with tonight. But there's no question in my mind, regardless of what law you put together or you have, there are going to be people that will abide by it and those that won't. I think the bigger issue is how you're going to enforce these laws, and is it truly worth it? Thank you.
Any other comments?
I just want to say that I agree that I don't think there should be permits, and I agree with Paul and Frank. I just want to know, how many people complained? Was there a lot of complaints, or just one, or two?
There were more than one. I don't have the number. The complaints would have come into the village clerk or the code enforcement officer. But there's more than one. I think everybody knows that there probably are a few perpetual yard sales that I'm guessing that the complaints were addressing. I could just speak to the neighbor-to-neighbor solution, your elected officials acting as arbitrators between, disgruntled neighbors. I think we've all done that at a certain point. I know I have stepped in and tried to mediate issues. But and the result of, I think, all of those, if there are no laws that are being broken, then it's very hard to reach a resolution, because no one can be held accountable for what they are perceived to be doing wrong. If we go to someone and say, you're having a yard sale 7 days a week, 365 days a year, your neighbor doesn't like it, would you please stop? The first thing that they say, well, show me the law that I'm breaking, and then I will stop. That's kind of how these things go. Not that we do not attempt to make the neighbor-to-neighbor relationship patching, but we sometimes need to have something on the books to go back to.
Well, to be absolutely honest, I did not mention half of the things I wrote down here, because I too, one of the questions was, how does a proposed law such as this get brought to the village board? Is there a petition? Does someone go around and take names from the community to see who wants to have a law, introduced? Is there a petition? Are there signatures? And I'm not aware of it, but if there's only one person complaining, or two people complaining,
The way it works and the way it worked in this case is complaints come in, then the board addresses, say, well, what can we do to fix the problem? And we, bring in the resources that we have, be it our code enforcement officer, be it our attorney, and we look at, well, what do other municipalities do? So this particular proposed law is borrowed from the village of Wappingers Falls. And, I think it's been portrayed that, potentially that Rhinebeck is, the village of Rhinebeck and this board is some kind of pioneer in the regulation of garage sales or yard sales, but in fact, these types of regulations exist in other municipalities, and they keep the neighbors on good terms. And that's what our objective is not to cause more problems for anybody, especially ourselves or our police or code enforcement officer.
But just give us tools, though, to be able to deal with these things. And we might have missed the mark a little bit by hijacking maybe somebody else's code, and it's not 100% applicable to us. But I can tell you that having a perpetual yard sale is really not something that I think anyone wants to live next door to.
I agree with you 100%.
Right, and so maybe.
Is there one in Rhinebeck that's set?
Yeah.
How many violators?
Where is it, perpetual yard sale? Isn't it? Well, I'm not.
Yeah, I don't think we need to.
There are some.
The one point that was mentioned that I think we do need to pay attention to is if such an ordinance was to be passed, the time flexibility with the permits, because there are points in time where you think it's going to be a great weekend, it's a washout, that shouldn't be counted as one of the four. That's part of the permitting process.
Somebody here, right, gives you a permit, and then they go in on Monday and say, oh, that probably didn't happen, it rained, so therefore that's not one of their four, so they have four more coming in. I mean, this isn't gonna happen.
Well, what I'm saying actually is that I think that's something that we should take into consideration in drafting this law. That's not in the law right now, so that's something that we would have to explore. I don't have the answer to that question, but I think that the point was brought up that we have time flexibility issues because of weather, things like that, that it's something that we should take into consideration to be fair if we were to pass this type of ordinance. I think one thing I have, I guess, to mention to the public is that right now what's proposed is four permits through the course of a calendar year. I'm not hearing that 4 is an unreasonable number. I'm hearing that any number would be unreasonable. Is that correct?
Well, looking at the seasons that we have here, you're not going to have a yard sale in January or February, I doubt it. So even that doesn't make a lot of sense if you wanted to, because of the weather, I'm saying. But
So 4 is not enough?
No, I'm saying 4, hey, it's fine, I think that's
We're
plenty.
asking.
That's what I'm trying
I'll
to.
wake up one day and say, I feel like I have a yard sale, I'll just throw everything out in my driveway.
Right.
See, that's also part of it too, because some people just decide, oh, it's a nice weekend, I'll put some things out and whatever. But the other thing to be considered, which is in the law, if I read it correctly, is that if the permits are issued and there's a violation, and the code officer goes into the home or approaches the homeowner, then a citation can be issued for each individual sale. Each individual sale. If someone's had a yard sale and got 20 people come in the morning to the yard sale and they sold 30 items or 20 items, how is the enforcement officer going to know to issue 30 separate citations for each sale? And the violation can be from $25 to $250. I don't know if people that make half of that when they have a yard sale. They're lucky if they make $50 or $60 or $75. So there are certain things, if you go forward, there are definitely things, and I think you agree, there are things that have to be looked at. You may want to also consider talking to the Chamber of Commerce over in Tivoli. They run, annually, they run a very successful, it's a community-wide yard sale. I don't know, there wasn't enough time, I was going to research it, but there wasn't enough time because I was busy with the antique show.
Well, that would be an organization would come to us and say, we want to have a community yard sale, that would be an event. And just keep in mind that this public hearing, this is part of the process. You asked, how does it happen? Well, this is why we have the public hearing, so we can't think of every potential glitch in the law, in the proposed law, and what we, borrow from another municipality. So we have the public hearing, we take the input, we tweak the law to meet the, meet the needs of our residents, and make it as fair as possible for everyone. So this is the process.
Yeah, I'd like to
Thank
make
you for your comments.
I'd like to make a comment that I think, from myself and maybe the rest of the board, that I really appreciate your comments about this subject, because I think it really brings forth some of the input that we really needed to maybe fine-tune this, to make it a reasonable process for the village of Rhinebeck, right? Do we have it, as Scott mentioned, do we have it nailed? Maybe not. But I think your input is really good. I think it is a community event. I think it does foster good community activity and relationships between people and friends and family and neighbors. So, having that, but we do need some way to make it so that there is a way to manage it. And that's all we're looking for, is a way to, how to manage that.
I guess I still have a question. I mean, it sounds like if there's not a question, then there's going to be a law, because you people really do believe there's a need for the law. And I think some of us do not agree that there's even a need for a law. I mean, we have 1 yard sale a year, so it's nothing personal. It won't really affect me. But it's just the fact is one more rule, one more regulation, one more loss of our freedom of what we can do. Because for whatever reason, very few people probably really, I don't know how many complaints you have received. I don't feel very many. And yet you're letting a few very vocal people make it more difficult for everybody else. And they dictate into it a new law that you feel is required without a doubt. No matter what we say, I think you're convinced there's a need for a law.
I don't know if that's
How
true.
would we, let me ask you this question. So how would we manage the few that we're having difficulty with when we have nothing to go on?
It's the way you do any other dispute between neighbors.
But you have to have something behind
We have
it.
no basis.
Maybe you don't need an
to
onerous
enforce
law.
anything.
With this proposed law, and say, look, you keep doing what you're doing, we're gonna pass this law, we're gonna screw the rest of the community, everybody else who has a yard.
And what if they don't care?
And then tell us who the people were.
That's a community.
That's all we're trying to do. Believe me, we don't need more to do
Yeah.
here by any sense of the.
So as we're moving forward here, if you want to make comment, you're going to have to come up to the microphone, identify yourself, and, keep your comments objective, and please direct your comments, direct your comments to the board as opposed to other members of the
I don't
audience.
have yard sales on my property, so
Okay.
that's a qualifier. But wouldn't someone having a perpetual yard sale, isn't that a zoning violation? Having a business in a residential neighborhood? Don't we already have zoning laws?
What constitutes a business?
I heard 2 or 3 times that the complaints that had come in were people are running perpetual yard sales.
I think that it feels more like a business, that there's a yard sale there always, but I'm not so sure it's really technically a business.
Just questioning. Yeah,
I mean,
I don't think we need a law.
Well, that's a good question.
I don't know where these perpetual yard sales are.
Hi, my name's Liz Brom, and I live near one of the yard sales. And I think I understand where the neighbors are coming from. They're clearly not selling stuff that's coming out of their house. I think that, some of the stuff hasn't moved, but there's been new stuff showing up, new genres that are definitely popping up. I can understand where the neighbors are a little annoyed by it. It's no longer going back into the garage. It's now staying outside, protected from the elements. And in a town I was living in before, there was a guy who was doing it every weekend, and it was in Southern California, so it was literally every weekend. And the town went in and said, look, you're running a business, you're not paying sales tax, you're not paying, what the other merchants are paying as far as their rents, etc. So I can understand where the neighbors are getting a little annoyed. That said, I also don't think that it is the right path to do the permit idea that you've come up with. And I understand that you're kind of wrestling with the two things. I think the zoning idea is one way to look at it. If you're running a business, maybe we need to define what exactly a business is in a residential area. I know that, it could get a little murky, but that's what you gotta deal with your attorney. The idea of doing the permits, a lot of us work 9 to 5, some of us work in the city. You guys, your hours are a little tricky if we have to come in and do a permit. So then we're having to, we can't wake up as we do sometimes and say, I've got all this stuff, I just want to do it today and get it over with. The other thing too that I'm very concerned with as far as the permits go is that this year there isn't a fee. Next year there may not be a fee. But as we heard earlier this evening, your estimate for the waterworks was underestimated and you guys need to come up with some money. I can see where 3 years down the road, 4 years down the road, you're going to say, well, maybe we should just start charging $5 a permit or $10 a permit. And then before we know it, we're going to be paying for the permits. So, and the other thing too is the cost of it all. You're going to have administrative costs, which are going to be found somewhere. And you're going to have this guy roaming the streets all weekend long, checking to make sure everybody has a permit. And that's going to cost us money as well. It's going to cost gas. And, the whole idea that it's causing traffic jams, I think is a little exaggerated. And it not being safe, I think the thing that I found more annoying is when people leave their trash on the streets. I think that is more of an obstacle getting around than the actual more neat and tidy yard sales that only occur on occasion. I can appreciate the neighbors' frustration, but I think that there may be another path that we could take. The idea of mediating between neighbors, I think if maybe you approach these people and said, look, we've had complaints, you're bordering on some kind of a violation, I don't know, you're gonna have to come up with an idea, but I just don't think the permits are the path to take today. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yard sales, garage sales, barn sales? Nobody? Welcome. So I'd like to make a motion to adjourn this public hearing until November 10th.
Second.
Discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Next one, next public hearing. I think we had it pretty much laid out last time, but do you want to present it again? This will be the rezoning of the Louis Ruge property. Oh, John is...
I'm just going to briefly explain.
Okay, so John Fenton, our code enforcement officer, is going to give us a little background as to the nature of the request, what the differences are in the districts that we're talking about, and what the potential changes would mean.
Well, maybe not that detailed.
No. And this would apply to the next 2 public hearings on the schedule, same material.
So my department received a request to have 2 parcels that are located in the residential special sensitivity overlay district and merge them into the village center special sensitivity overlay district. The reason for this request is to maximize the use of their parcels. There's 2 applicants, Mr. Ruge and Mr. Tumolo. I'm only familiar with Mr. Ruge's application. In his particular case, there's a parcel with a house on it. I'm not sure exactly what the full history of it was. It appeared to be maybe a doctor's office and then maybe residential and back and forth. Mr. Ruge's application is to utilize that house as a professional office. The only thing that's really holding this whole request up is that a professional office in that overlay is required to be owner occupied. And so that's where the glitch is. So you can go either two avenues. You can rezone the district, or you can have the applicant apply for a use variance, which is very hard to basically pull off. You know, there's a lot of requirements for a use variance. So that's where we're at. Okay? Any questions?
So the only difference is that now it would have been owner occupied.
Yes.
And so now, going forward, it doesn't have to be owner occupied. And the same uses are,
If the parcel is rezoned to village center,
yep,
it's a permitted use.
it's a permitted use, but with residential principles.
Residential setbacks under 224.
I think it's just the setbacks, right?
Setbacks.
Yeah, that's it.
Just the setbacks.
Yeah, now the setbacks I've already checked and they're all compliant.
What other uses are permitted?
There's a full list. I mean, with respect to Mr. Rugi, either it's going to be a service, retail, or professional office.
And John, you have maps up there, there's extras, right?
Yeah.
That look like this,
If
if anyone wants to
anybody
look.
wants a layman's term map of what's going on here, I basically just colored in the parcels that are zoned village district and the parcels that are zoned residential with the sensitive overlay. And then there's two parcels that are kind of marked with lines through it. Those are the parcels that are being requested to have their zone change. So they're here if you want it.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, you can have it.
so permitted to be a home occupation.
Oh. So Sean, what were you asking?
The other uses that would be permitted.
So it's the
I mean,
uses,
there's a full
Yeah,
list.
I'm reviewing them now.
Oh,
so it's the
okay.
uses under village center.
Yes.
So they are, the permitted ones are home occupation, professional office, retail business, apartments, bed and breakfast establishment, bed and breakfast home, lodging facility, municipal use, and there's a myriad of special permitted uses that
Now,
are,
Mr. Rugi was presenting that it would be administration with maybe a CPA, a certified accountant. So CPA would fall under the classification of a professional office. So being that he's in the residential sensitivity overlay district, it's, he would require a use variance to be able to use that building in that capacity.
I'm just thinking
Right.
about this for both applications, that's why I'm asking.
Right, no.
Yeah.
Now, the other application, I'm not
Right.
familiar with. It was kind of bypassed my office and just came out here, so I didn't do a full review on that one.
It's, you know where they are here.
Yeah.
Now, usually, a request like this would need circulation to the county and the ZBA and so on.
Under this, it's all under the village board.
For the lead agency, and then they would circulate it.
We're on the highway. We're not on the
So do you
highway.
guys want to present anything on it, or do you want?
Sure. My name is Mark Berminski. I'm a consulting engineer and land surveyor. I'm here actually representing both applications that have been referenced. The first one for Ruby's Red Hook Holdings LLC, and the second for Tulare Realty LLC. Mr. Fenton pretty much covered what was the request that's been made by Ruby's for this particular rezoning. I mean, I'll just, clarify, I think everyone probably knows the location of which is being referenced, but, it's located on the north side of Chestnut Street, right at right near its intersection with Montgomery Street. So this here's the existing, Ruby's automotive building, and then immediately to the east of that is where is the property from which the zoning change is being requested. It's a residence located on a little less than a quarter of an acre, and as was mentioned, the current zone is in the residential district, but in the SSO district, as is the current Ruby's automotive building, which is in the village center district, also in the SSO district. So originally, Ruby's Red Hook Holdings made application to the planning board to have the business offices located in this structure. And then we actually go through the section of the code relative to the SSO district. Under SSO, under residential, is where the requirement is that if you do have a business office located there, it needs to be owner occupied. And so that's not what's desirous of Ruby's for this particular application. So it was at that time that the village planning board suggested that application be made to this board for consideration of rezone in order to accomplish what their goals were for this particular property. So that, I think Mr. Fenn pretty well summed that up. I don't know if I should go in. Do you want to stay on this particular?
Yeah, let's stick with this property, and then I'll make the motion to open the public hearing for the rezoning of the Louis Rugi property.
Second.
Discussion. All's in favor? Aye. Aye. So, is there any comment from the public in regards to the rezoning of this particular property that was just described?
Pamela Marin.
Come on up to the microphone, please. Now it's working very effectively. I can hear myself.
Pamela Marin at 9 Chestnut. I'd just like to know what the parking requirements are, or if there are any, if this should change, if this change should go through. Would there be requirements on the property for the offices or not?
I think he's checking.
There is definitely parking requirements. It's based off of, pretty sure, square footage. And then, the process hasn't been reviewed because we don't know if these even need to be approval, so it hasn't been a formal review on it. But I just know that when it comes to off-street parking, there was a chart that they have to comply with.
Do you have a plan for parking that you want to?
No specific plan has been developed. One thing I should also note is that since the property, the existing zoning is in the SSO, the proposed zoning is to remain in the SSO. So application, if the rezone application is successful, it's still required to go back to the planning board for site plan special permit. All actions in the SSO district, I believe, require a site plan special permit application. So that would be the details, of the specific development of the site would be covered at that time.
Right. So if there wasn't ample parking on site, then it would go to the fee in lieu of parking, I would imagine, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So, is there any other way that we could accomplish this goal other than amending the zoning? In your opinion?
Well, I may look to council
use variance application, which I don't think you can prove a use variance application.
But that would go to the zoning board.
No, use variance, the use variance will go to the zoning board, yes.
Why don't you think you could prove that?
You literally have to prove that you can't get any economic benefit out of each and every use in the district in which you are in by competent financial proof.
Can you repeat that? Can you repeat that, please?
Sure, the standard for a use variance is you have to go through every use that's permitted in the residential SSO district and prove that you can't make a reasonable return on your investment on that property.
And
Louis Rugi, I just want to clarify a couple of things here. This proposal, we haven't got into the parking yet, but one of our problems in the village, to run a business like we run in the village, is a parking problem. We do lease the land from the parking lot from the church for our employees. The people that are going, now I know that we're not talking about the future necessarily, but I'm planning on the future to be able to pass this business on to my own kids. But the people that are going to work in this building are already working in the other building, which it's just going to be a matter of moving from one to the other. It's like 4 people. So the parking doesn't change for us. We're still going to use the church, and that's where our employees park now. So, and that, I mean, we lease that from them. We get thrown out on occasion, but it works pretty well, and we keep the neighborhood pretty clean in that respect. So, just want to kind of, that's not maybe what we're going to have to do when we go to we've got to go back now to the planning board if we can get this approved, and we got to apply for a permit there. So this is quite a procedure just to do something, but we're so out of space, we're trying to do every little bit that we can, so.
so if the use were to change many years down the road, let's say, then the new applicant would have to go to the planning board, and whatever their proposed use would be, the parking would be readdressed, just like it is every other commercial property.
Yeah, what it says is, it's under the village center, it says all building and zoning permit applications, all building permit and zoning permit applications in the SSO district shall be subject to site plan approval.
Right, so the planning board this time could say, yeah, well, there is no additional parking need, but if they wanted to turn it into professional offices and they needed 2 spaces per.
They were going to change a use, or they were going to do some
They'd have to go back
renovations of the
anyway,
building or whatever.
regardless.
You're also being asked for a very specific use, which is one use within that village center zone. So, I mean, you're being asked to place them into a zone. I think the board has the authority to restrict the potential use so that you can eliminate a number of the uses in there, because it's the same use that could be there if it was owner occupied into the residential zone. The key here is not going to be owner occupied.
So we could approve addition
You could approve
To-
it,
to the
change
zone.
to the village center zone, limited to the professional office as requested. Then if there were ever to be another change beyond that, they would have to come back before the board again.
So we can change the use for a single,
For that specific,
Property?
it's sort of like a contract zoning, really.
But if you were to see the list of things that are permitted under that, they're all very, very similar.
right,
I don't know if it makes sense to do that.
okay.
Can we hear a little bit about the other application?
Yeah, do we want, let's,
We have something open on this one.
yeah.
Oh,
we
they're not
have-
open together?
No,
Oh,
it's 2
my
separate
apologies.
public hearings, so.
My apologies.
This one's a big comment.
Did you want to talk
Do you
about
wa-
this?
Okay.
Hi, my name is Liz Mazarel. I live at 19 Chestnut Street, and I wasn't here because of this. And my concern hearing about this isn't because I'm concerned about how Rugies is going to maintain the space. I mean, all their properties are beautifully maintained, and I'm quite confident that, that will continue. My concern is if this is changed, say someone at 22 Chestnut Street a few years from now says, well, they were able to do this and make this a commercial building. Now, why can't I do that? And then is it going to snowball? I mean, is that going to give other people in that area the ability to create this commercial area that is now a residential area?
Well, it'd be hard to say no, since we already had one add-on already, so.
Right
So
next to it.
there's no, there's no restrictions that can be implemented saying that,
I mean, I think those restrictions were put on whenever the map that we have today was drawn, and now we're looking at, it would be the same type of process that we're talking about here.
so every person who wanted to do this would have to come.
Not every person. So, I mean, these properties are really limited. This zone is called Village Center, and it's called Village Center for a reason. So it originates in the center of the village, and it kind of branches out. And as it does go into the residential district, that there are properties that are marginal, that border on the commercial district, and really could be used one way or the other. And so that's what this special sensitivity zone is for. We couldn't go down to your house on Chestnut Street and say, now this is Village Center special sensitivity, leapfrogging all the residential ones. But
So there is a line.
there is a line of sorts, but your argument's
Right.
valid for something that could be across the street, like Joffrey's
Right.
house, or something.
Right.
That could be a pretty valid argument, say, it's across the street from this property.
But each person would have to come and obtain all, it's not like there's going to be this broad.
There's no automatic.
The line would have to be moved by action of the board every time. It would be a new, each lot. I mean, it's not to say you couldn't approve 3 lots at a time, but every line adjustment to the district would require a similar process that we're going through now.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Pat Strong, and I live at 11 Chestnut Street. And it was always my understanding that the entire street was marked residential as well as historic district. Am I mistaken with this SSO zoning? I've lived on the street for 52 years. I think I'm the oldest and longest resident of the street. And that's what we have always been considered, is residential and historic. So if we're historic, how do you change that?
No, and you're always gonna be historic. It is historic.
And you can have this special use and
Yes, you can.
historic?
And if you read some of the criteria under these different things, it mentions history and keeping with the architecture and I can read it to you. There are things in here, even though it's a commercial use, it still has the criteria of a residential building. It'll have the setbacks, it'll still look like a home. They couldn't go in and knock it down and then build it to the Village Center principles, which have 0 lot lines and those type of things. It could be operated as a business, it appear as a residential building.
And to get back to what Liz was saying now, I'm jumping the gun, but the Tumalo residence that they were talking about is number 7 Chestnut Street. I'm 11, so we're already going 5, 7.
That's why we wanted to talk about this application first.
But I mean, it's creeping up the street, as Liz said, could somebody else go ahead and apply also? I just didn't want a precedent being set where eventually other issues come up on the street and other changes. It's a beautiful street. I'd like to see it remain that way. I don't want to see it go commercial. I understand what Lewis wants to do. I don't care if you sit offices in there. It makes no difference to me. As long as it's not setting a precedent, changing the zoning of the street, and making it able to go forward with other owners on the street, like number 7. So 5 and 7 are wanting a request for this. I'm number 11. So it's moving along. And that's my only concern, is the precedent it may be setting.
Let me read something for you, because I think this may make sense for everyone. It says, this is the findings and purpose of the special sensitivity overlay. It says, the village finds that a certain group of properties which are located in both the village center and residential districts, and which are either contained within the historical district or form a gateway to the historic area, require special attention. The special sensitivity overlay will serve to encourage the preservation of the historical character of the village and maintain the integrity of the residential character of the Route 9 corridor despite the impact of heavy traffic. The economic vitality and historic fabric of the village will be compromised if the character of these properties is allowed to disappear. So, I mean, it's a big part of the consideration is the history. But it's also to make it viable for some of those properties that are on the border of that Route 9.
So let's say 2 years from now, there's another change wanted for that same property, would they have to come back to the board?
Yes.
And go through the same process all over again?
Not this board. Once we change it, then it would go before the planning board for site plan approval.
Once the variance is achieved?
Yes. Well, once we change the zone.
Anytime you pull a permit in the gateway or the village center, no matter what kind of permit, you still need planning board approval. Right?
So this will be maintained as a separate, still as a separate property, right? It's not, I mean, would it be possible to do a lot line adjustment and annex it onto the property?
I'm not sure that we'd want to because, I mean, we want it to keep its residential character. I mean, I think that's what everyone kind of wants.
And it's
Serves that buffer.
isn't it our understanding that it could be used this would be classified as a special use, right? So if it changed from what it
It's
was
permitted
defined.
under this. If we were to change the zone, it would be a permitted use as a
A
professional
permitted
office.
use,
Yeah.
yes. But if at any time that usage want to change, they'd have to come back and ask for variance to change it.
And it
correct?
could be an office. If we change the zone and Rugies move their offices in there in 2 years from now, that it goes back to being, it could be a residence again. Under this zone, it can be both.
Any further comments? So I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing on this particular property.
Second.
Discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
So I think we already have Rich?
Well, there's a couple of questions I'd like to look at before you take any action on it.
No, I wasn't going to take any action. I was going to say we're going to move on. You're giving me the
move on to
look,
the
but
next one, sure.
we're going to move on to the next, I think the stage has already been set for that. There's no, the similar discussion. So I'll make the motion to open the public hearing in regards to the rezoning of the Louis Tumalo property.
Second.
Discussion. All's in favor?
Aye. Hi, Mark Rhinebeck again, representing Louis Tumalo Realty LLC. Once again, this application is for the village board's consideration of a rezone change, or a zoning change for property owned by Tumalo Realty, Tumalo Realty, Inc. And this parcel is a little more unique in its configuration in comparison to the last application this board just heard. So the Tumalo Realty property, which is now the current use of the property as an animal hospital, has frontage on Montgomery Street, Route 9, and then continues and has an L shape and also has frontage on Chestnut Street. And so the history of this property is important with regard to this configuration, is that this, the main animal hospital is, located here, kind of straddles the L portion here where it turns. And then there's also a residence that's located close to Chestnut Street. And that residence at one time housed, doctor, vet for the animal hospital, and at various times, other people related to this use. And I know there's been other, rental situations there. But this has always been associated with the animal can see that when you look at, here's the entrance right here off of Route 9. Parking area here, and then there's also parking in the rear here, and then animal hospital located here, and then the residence. And so the main reason, and so it's, once again, it's residential SSO overlay district for this entire property. And I'll just note that both the residents on Chestnut Street for our Rugies and for Tumlos, they are listed as historic structures. So in consideration of this, what Mr. Tumlo has, the emphasis is on is that I was part of a site plan application for him several years ago for making some changes to the animal hospital. And so because it was in a residential zone, there were quite a few restrictions that, it was an existing non-conforming use under the village code. So in order to make some changes and modifications to the animal hospital, it was restricted as to what you can do. And so it's almost the same situation here with the request being made for this board's consideration for rezoning, is that although when you look through the allowable uses in under the current code, animal hospital is not listed. But it's certainly not a residential use, and so it's more of a commercial use. And so the thought and the thought process is that the request for the rezoning, if any changes, it's the same thing with Tumalo having a family taking over the veterinary practice. Any changes to the to the animal hospital, the application to the planning board would be difficult again, as it was in the past with with any modifications. So it's with that request to that this board consider this particular property for the rezoning change.
So why is the residence located on the same parcel as the animal hospital?
Just going through the chain of title, it's I can find at no time was there were they ever combined or were they separate properties. So that's always been the parcel configuration for that.
They've always been together?
Yes.
Really? So it wasn't part of the last expansion of that animal hospital that they were merged?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, there was this because you can see it extends here, and then there's combined uses on this property. So no, they were not merged. So this has always been the parcel configuration.
Does that map show the garage or the outbuildings between the animal hospital and the residence?
There's a garage here.
Okay.
Right here.
And that's the only one? That's the one you see down the driveway past the house?
Yes, here's the driveway right here off of Chestnut Street.
Okay.
So what is the reasoning for the,
Connected to it.
It is the animal
Yeah,
hospital?
that's, outline the animal hospital there, Mark. Yeah, see, so with that garage is connected, so it forms one solid building across the back
One
of.
solid building across the back.
so what is the reason for doing this? I know Mr. Rugi has said he needs the extra office space because he's under pressure from Subaru to modernize the building, and he needs the space in the Subaru building to get the offices out into a separate area. But what is the reasoning for the Tumalo application?
To have the zone more consistent with what the use of the property is.
But even with the village center zone, I don't see that it's a permitted use.
That's correct.
So how would this change benefit the current status His current operations.
It's just going from a residential zone to I'll just say a non-residential zone. So it's more consistent with the zoning, the use. Although at this time, not an allowed use.
So does the home become commercial use too? Is that allowed to be commercial use?
It could be a professional office, it could be a retail business.
What is it used for now?
It's a home.
Where are you
It's a
saying
rental.
the driveway is?
Right here,
Where's the house?
right here.
The driveway's to the other side of the house. Because my house is right there. I don't think you're pointing there too.
No, it's to the right of the house.
The rental house.
This is not their house,
Right here.
the rental house.
This is the mistake.
Oh,
Okay, sorry, I
Has-
apologize.
Has there ever been a consideration to divide the house away from the animal hospital?
That was just actually discussed when we were in for the site plan application for the animal hospital. It can be a consideration and something to, Lutulo is not here tonight to discuss, although someone, Tom from his office is here. But I think, that's, something that can certainly be discussed, but it would, in doing that, in creating a lot line there, I know there's some use issues between the animal hospital and the residents that would have to be addressed. And then also, I think there's also some zoning issues too, when you.
Bulk regulations?
Yeah, when you create that lot, I mean, you'd also need some area variances for it also.
But it might.
For the residents?
Excuse me. Yes, just, if you were to just make this, a single, like a separate parcel, yes, you'd have to, to keep it in the same zoning district.
You need about 8,000 square feet.
Right, but I think there's some, there are other bulk regulations that would be in violation, so you'd have to make application to the ZBA at the same time.
But by doing that, that might help us with the argument that, this district is creeping into the residential district. And, I think there is a house directly across the street from this. It's not church property any longer, right?
Right.
So we might get the pressure to.
I asked a question earlier, and I don't think we'll have the answer tonight, but I'm wondering if the district line could cut across the property line, meaning that the residents would stay in the residential district, the animal hospital would now go into the overlay, exactly. So the property wouldn't be subdivided, but the line would go right across the property, so I think what everyone is maybe thinking is that they'd like to see the house stay as a residential property, but it makes sense for the animal hospital to go into the other district.
Sorry, I misunderstood your point there. I thought you were subdividing it, but.
No, two questions. The first one was subdividing, say, well, if that's not gonna work, can you just draw the line across one parcel and have it one parcel subject to two different zoning?
I'll just go to council. I think you can, right?
I think so. I mean, I could go
Yeah,
back into the.
so we have to look into that, but it's a potential solution maybe.
Okay.
That would possibly make everybody
It's easier to
happy.
get an area variance.
How far does the property extend to the back of the neighboring property? See where, if you follow the T to the right? Yeah.
This is Connie Bathrick's house. This is her backyard right here.
And
This is Mrs. Strong who just spoke right there.
okay, and it's Mrs. Strong or Strum?
Strong.
Strong. How far does that extend into Mrs. Strong's backyard?
It's actually my backyard,
Yeah, it's right
and
up.
the driveway goes right along the edge of the property. And then at the back of our property is the animal hospital walking area that they have behind the buildings.
That's right here.
Yeah, and that area, how,
Oh, it's this distance right here?
yes, exactly.
I just want to check it, it's 50 feet.
Any further comment from the public, from the board? So I'll make a motion to, let's go the other way. Make a motion to, you're not coming up to the microphone, are you? No. Okay. Make a motion to adjourn the public hearing in regards to this property until November 10th.
Second.
Discussion? All's in favor? Aye.
Just a question for the board members.
Yes.
So, you know, so is it the, so consideration of just limiting the zone change to exclude this residence? I just want to be able to, you know, speak to Dr. Tumlo and then, you know, do some meaningful work and come back in November with something that, you know, is,
I mean, I think having that option on the table may make the whole, potentially make the whole process move faster.
okay.
But that's just,
No,
you
just
know,
looking for some comments
just
from the
my,
board.
my opinion.
I kind of like that. You
Yeah.
know, it kind of cuts back on the sprawl up Chestnut Street
Okay,
and maintains the character of the village.
okay. Great.
So we have to check and see if we could draw the line that way, then that may be the easiest way to do it. Then you don't have to wouldn't have to worry about subdividing the property and the variance changes. But again, we have to look into that. And if you can get it before next month, that would be welcome.
I will do that, and then I will, I'll go back to Dr. Tumlo with that, and look forward to coming back next month.
Okay.
I'd like to ask one more question. Mark, so I think the question was asked, there's no valid justification to change that parcel, right? By Louis Tumlo. In other words, like, you know, in terms of turning it into office space or anything like that, it's just to keep it status quo?
Yeah, right now, there would be no application to the planning board for any use change. The animal hospital use would still remain the same. And then if I could have this board's permission to speak to Rich, maybe it's, is there a consideration for a zoning text change to include animal hospital in this zone? I don't know if that's too far reaching in order to make it an allowable use there.
What do you got back there, Scott?
The new zoning.
Oh. You gotta make a note, or is it already in there?
I'm gonna make a note.
Okay. So I think we've done it on the public hearings. I do have one correspondence related to a public hearing that I forgot to address. That was related to the sidewalk public hearing. It was a comment from Piper Woods, basically stating that some of our most of our sidewalks extend a minimum of 17 feet. Saying that restricting use to only 3 feet from the building's facade is unreasonable. And she's asking for more reasonable dimensions for that particular.
I think she said 50% of, right?
No. I mean, that's what the law says. Oh, such as, yeah, asking for no more than 50%.
Right. So on a 17-foot sidewalk, that would be a 8.5.
And asking to increase the length of the rack that is currently allowed under 89.7. That's the outdoor display. It's currently allowed at 3 feet. She's requesting that be added to 6 feet. And she asked that we put this into the record. So, be it recorded.
Did we actually
What?
postpone the Rugi?
No, that public hearing was closed.
Oh, okay.
Right,
Rich
before you
needed
take any
something.
action on
So
that.
we're not taking any action.
Yeah, we're not going to take action on tonight, but we closed the public hearing on it. Yes, Mark.
Question for the board and council. So any next steps for us to, any other materials required?
The Rugi hat or Tumalo?
With regard to Rugi, with regard to Rugi. I mean, with the application submitted.
I think that one was fully submitted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we're waiting on anything.
Fully submitted.
I just have to go back and check a couple of things.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And while we're discussing the laws, we have two potential laws for next month, which would be adjustments to the vehicle and traffic law that Rich is working on and will have ready, which would post parking here in front of the Village Hall and in front of the police station on Center Street. We have the dimensions that'll come out. So basically, the law would read, parking for Village Hall business only between 9 and 4, Monday through Friday, with a 1-hour limit for the spots right here in front of Village Hall, and then posted for police department business only on those spots in front of the police office. And we'll be taking the spots against the side of the police station that are now reserved for police business, and those will be for reserved for the police cars, employee parking, and then we will be freeing up those spots immediately in front of the buildings for the public to
That's
use.
good to know, because Pat and I are already using that as employee parking over there tonight.
Yes, well, it will be posted. We're going to be moving. The lot is being striped on Friday, so we will be directing our employees back there and saving these spots for the easiest access. And so I'd like to make the motion to set those two public hearings for November 10th.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
So we'll have a couple continuations and a couple new public hearings for next time. We just need the revisions on the limiting the hours and the time limit. That's the only changes to what I've already seen. So moving on to the normal business portion of the meeting. Thank you for sticking it out, those of you from the public, we appreciate it. So,
Good evening.
yes, Karen, so we're going to move on to the treasurer's report.
Okay, my treasurer's report is for the period ending September 30th. The general fund savings balance was $1,342,940.59. The water fund balance, $659,127.47. The sewer fund, $684,077.96. The vouchers presented for payment for October, the general fund, $51,536.73. The water fund, $35,356.48. The sewer fund, $14,433.12. And a bill from the escrow account in the amount of $1,576.90. I'll explain the next two because the next two presented for payment also will require a resolution for a budget amendment. The police station bond is money that was in the police station account that's been sitting there, and by law it can only be used to pay principal on the bond. So I'm requesting to transfer the police station bond amount of $4,651.19 into the general fund for the purpose of paying principal on that bond and closing that account out. It's kind of a housekeeping it can go towards paying principal, but we can also close that account out.
I'll make the motion
Oh, we're gonna do
to make that transfer as requested by the treasurer.
Okay.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and the next one is the capital parking voucher, two vouchers for the capital parking in the amount of $11,420.16. Will require a budget amendment to move funds from the capital parking fund to the general fund for the purpose of paying those 2 vouchers for paving of the Village Hall parking lot.
I'll make the motion to approve that transfer as requested by the treasurer.
Second.
Discussion?
Yes. Are those the funds that we collected for the parking in lieu?
That's correct.
Is that, okay.
Yes.
Is that all the money in that account? Is that
No.
depleted?
No, I believe there's like 30,000 in there. Next month, I will break down the capital reserve general. There's 3 capital reserve accounts, one in the general fund, the water fund, and the sewer. The general fund is broken down into a few different categories, so I'll provide that additional with the report next month.
And one of those from the general fund is the parking?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And these funds are being paid to the town, is that correct?
These, right now, they're
Cal-
paid directly to the blacktop people.
Right,
Calendar.
for,
Materials.
The materials.
yeah,
Yes.
for
Okay.
materials, for supplies.
So we'll have another one probably like this, depending on our
Correct.
highway budget. yeah.
Okay. But it's separate. This is materials right now. We're not
Right.
dealing-
Correct.
Okay.
Okay? So also with your treasurer's report,
Oh, all those in favor?
thank you. Also with your treasurer's report is the monthly operating statement. Also, I'd like to report to the board that the 2014-15 fiscal year ending annual report has been filed with the New York State Comptroller's Office as well as in the village clerk's office. And I just want to confirm, I emailed that to everyone. And
Yeah.
just want to make sure y'all got it. Okay?
I just have a housekeeping question
Yes.
here on this report here. Buildings, under the buildings area, is that for this building here?
Is it 1620?
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. And then, there's another area, general repairs, I think it's under, yeah. What's that, what area is that for?
That's highway. These are just taken right out of the New York State chart of accounts.
Yeah,
But that's for the 5110 is for
That's what you're
streets.
asking about.
that's what I was, yeah, because in the past, no, this is great the way you're
I
doing
mean,
it.
I can change it for our purposes and just when I do the annual report, change it back to general repairs. I can make it
No, I can
streets.
adjust. I
Yeah, I
just,
think we can adjust, let's make it.
Okay, keep
and
it.
then it says permanent improvement. What area is that for?
The permanent improvement is the CHIPS money.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and that's the official classification code and the way that the CHIPS code.
Okay, everything else
It's stated.
is clear for me.
Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
I think, we'll skip on down to the police department since we have sort of done here.
We gotta take care of Liz too.
Oh, where's she at here?
Porch.
She's the Porch
Oh,
Fest.
you're the Porch Fest person, okay. So we will go right to Liz. Sorry, Pete.
That's okay. I'm good.
Unless you want to
We
hang
like
out.
to take care of the public first, so please come on up here, and we're going to now be under special requests down on C. That would be the second number 5, C.
Special events.
We have a new system of organization up here, so bear with us while we find it.
That's okay.
Oh, go ahead.
All right, I'm Liz Mazzarella, and I submitted an event application to Pat Kuhn, and kind of give you the history behind this. My daughter goes to Ithaca College, and I went up about 3 weekends ago and was a spectator at what they call Porch Fest. I don't know if anyone is familiar with it, but it's a national event. It's a music festival, and it takes place throughout one's community on different porches within the community. I was just amazed by the community spirit. I was amazed about the wide range of people at this event, from, kids in strollers to the elderly to, it was amazing. And I just said, oh my God, this would be a wonderful event for Rhinebeck. We have all these wonderful porches throughout the village, as you all know. I think it's a wonderful opportunity to promote local businesses and bring revenue into the shops and the restaurants and the boutiques, as someone put. It's a very, very low cost thing to kick off. I actually reached out to the Porch Fest organizers from Ithaca, and they sent me their whole plan of how they implement this event. It's very simplistic. I am willing to do all the legwork behind it. I put together a board. The only thing I can see, and please correct me because I don't understand all the ins and outs of how the village works, but the only expense I can foresee would be extra police presence. I am asking that for a brief period of time that certain streets be blocked off just for the protection of the people at this event. I am willing to, I put a simplistic plan in place. I am very willing to change that and accommodate the village in any way. My plan was to utilize Livingston to Platt in some type of, I don't know how far east or west you would go, but to Mulberry. But those streets, I think, for safety reasons, would have to be blocked off. And I'm thinking a 4-hour window. I was thinking of, I guess this will be in the future, I was thinking, even going across to south, but I think that makes it much more complicated when you're crossing over Market. And so I thought for the first year, because I think everyone's going to love this event, I'm going to keep it small. I would think that parking issues, my thought is to utilize the fairgrounds, because that's very close proximity to those streets. We will have to bring in a small amount of restrooms. I think that's also a good location for them. That expense wouldn't be a village expense. I would take care of that, whether through fundraising or whatever. Being a nurse, I think that first aid is very important for this type of event. And my first thought was maybe have a volunteer or a few volunteers at the firehouse that maybe could accommodate that. It's just a suggestion. I'm not sure what they have there for that type of thing. The other thing they did up in Ithaca is they had a food truck roundup, so that these people on the streets, it's a 12 to 5 kind of window. So I want people, to go and utilize the restaurants in the evening, but it's kind of a fun, as people are walking around, to grab something as they're going from porch to porch and listening to music at different places. That's why I kind of asked that it was on a Saturday, not a Sunday, because I don't want to interfere with the farmer's market. Very flexible as to the dates. I don't want to, cause any conflict with anything else that might be going on in the village. I'm thinking sometime in the fall next year, 2016. It's going to be mostly, in regard to noise. I know that might be a concern. The majority of the music is acoustic. They do have, I don't know if you're familiar with Woodstock, I noticed some like drum circles. But I think it's a great way to bring the community together. I know there's a lot of wonderful young artists and musicians within the community. I think it would be great to pull from Hudson as far south as New York City. I think it would be well received. So I just think it'd be a fun event for the community, and I think it'll bring revenue to our area. So, any questions? I'm sure
I think we'll need a date.
I did give Pat a date. What did I give you? I even forgot what I gave you, because I didn't initially, and she says, no, you got to give him a date.
Is that the date again?
Oh, yeah, so we'd have to pin down a date, and then we'd have to,
September 10th.
okay. And then we'd have to circulate, we'd have to define where the porches were.
Right.
And
My thought is I would go on foot. I live in that area, so I would literally, I don't know if something has to be created legally, to ask the homeowners if they'd be willing to open up their, I don't know if that's the homeowner's responsibility. I don't know if something legally has to be put in place, or if they're just saying, okay, I'm willing to have, or maybe they, the way they do it in Ithaca actually is they don't take on that responsibility. They let the musicians find somebody within the community that's willing to take them, or they know them, or for whatever reason. So that kind of takes a little of the legal scare, I think, out of it. So I don't know. It's obviously it's a new event, and there are a lot of kinks I'm sure that I have to work through, but I'm willing to do
It sounds
that.
like a great event.
Yeah.
It's- Look, it's, and it sounds like it's, you have enough time to plan it.
Right.
So it's not like you want to do it in 2 weeks or 5 weeks or
No.
something. So it's kind of a work in progress. So something where, I don't know whether we see you every month or something, as more and more details come together, we probably want to know, probably have a completed event application.
Well, what's the requirement? Is it 120 days?
For the event application,
Yeah,
right?
so you have time, the completed application is due 120 days before the event, so we have some time
So
to
to
work on it.
revamp the initial one, is that what you're saying? Because
Well,
I did submit an event.
Right.
Oh,
Okay.
do we have that whole thing?
Yeah, it's in the packet.
But it says to be determined.
To be, yeah.
No,
I think
that-
that there's,
No, and then Patty asked me to give a date, so I
No,
did.
we don't,
oh, you did?
But we
Sorry.
don't have that.
we don't have the whole
Yeah.
But I
thing.
think, Liz, what it would have is at least more detail, where the porches are, I mean, how many events, where the food trucks are. All of those things, so Pete can plan, the police coverage and that type of stuff. So I would submit the application 120 days prior to it with every bit of detail that you had.
Okay.
Or 180.
Or 180,
Whatever,
right,
as
right.
much time as you have.
My only concern is that I feel like I need a date, and I don't know how you can do that, just so I can be saying to these homeowners, on September 10th, I'm gonna need your porch. I can't go out to them and say, oh, we wanna do a porch fest. I have to have a solid date, because
Yeah.
some people might not, you know what I'm saying?
I
So
mean,
that's the only thing I feel I really
The
need.
best thing would be to look at the remainder of already scheduled events. So, whatever happens at the fairgrounds that weekend, because that'll be an issue if you're gonna try to work with the fairgrounds to use parking or any kind of staging there, then
Yeah,
you
is
have
the
to talk
marathon
to
next
Andy.
year? Is the
It's not
fall?
that, it's not that
The
weekend.
Marathon's talking about moving the date possibly, and they're
Because it
talking
was
with Andy
this
now.
weekend.
Yeah, but she's talking about the 10th of September.
No, she said,
So just
Oh,
check,
September?
just check with Andy, because his
Yeah.
schedule's starting to get set now for next
I
week.
thought it was,
Which marathon, you talking about the,
Yeah, the fall
September
foliage, they're talking about changing it up a little bit.
oh, okay.
So, and he has some other events next year he's changing dates on, so I don't think they're all set in stone yet.
Okay.
So
I
if
don't know.
you, Andy and Parati, the
Oh,
fairgrounds.
okay.
And it's your intention to put on this event yourself?
Yes. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people in the community, and everyone seems very anxious to get involved and be a part of it in some way.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I think it's a great idea, but I think the general feeling is that you need information from us to help put your event together, and we need information from you to
Sure.
help get an idea of exactly even the number of homes that you have in mind.
Okay,
Things
so
like
I'll
that,
just do a
you know.
preliminary, they're willing, they're not sure if it's the right, it might be a conflict with date, but they'll,
Can I ask a question? Does Ithaca have, do they have a website for
Yes,
their Porch
it's,
Fest? So that if the board wanted to look at it? that they
sure,
could have an
absolutely.
idea?
And just so you know, it's done from, it's done in Cleveland, Ohio, Ontario, it's done in Napa, Salt
Yeah,
Lake
the-
City.
I don't think there's any issue with the idea itself. It's
Yes.
more about the
So-
details.
www.porchfest.org.
Oh,
It's as simple as that.
Liz, I only had one question.
Sure.
Did you talk to, you say you talked to a lot of people, and I know you live on the street. Have you talked to the residents on those streets and kind of get a flavor for their interest, to make sure that,
Oh, exactly, that's my next, yeah.
okay, so you need to do that, yeah.
I still need to do that. I mean, I
Okay.
talked to friends and people in the community, musicians and things. But true, that's gonna
Right.
be, I have a porch and I've heard people say, oh, I'll open up my porch. And then the other thing is, some people weren't actually on the porch, they were in the driveway. So I don't know do I have to, it's not, It's just really, I guess, utilizing someone's home space.
Driveway Fest doesn't sound quite as
Okay.
nice.
Yeah, but you could start drivewayfest.org.
Well, actually, they're
If you
thinking
wanted to
about
beat
doing
'em to the
Roof
punch.
Fest, but I don't think we'll do that.
So the insurance piece would be something you have to think about in your planning, so. we
Now,
would-
what is it, because they said that they don't have to get special insurance. What does that mean?
Well, it would insure the event, and it would name the village as an additional insured for
Okay.
liability.
And who do I do that through? Is that just, how does that work? I don't know anything about that.
Let's say talk to an insurance agent, because you're looking to insure just 5 hours, or, maybe the setup and the breakdown. And in terms of financial planning, what have been doing more recently is anytime there's an additional police coverage required for an event, we're expecting the event to cover that additional cost. So what we would normally have on that given day, the village is already budgeted and paid for, but if it takes, 2 extra officers, then we would require that be paid for by the event.
Okay.
And that would be evaluated once we have an idea of what we're looking at, the requirements to, what had to be blocked off, how many people we're expecting. We'd have a better idea what that would be.
And regarding, I'm trying to cover my bases, like trash removal, my thought was, each home that's hosting
That's a great idea.
musicians, that they would have their own garbage and recyclable receptacle, and they would be responsible for that space. And then, obviously, is there an area, the truck roundup, the food truck roundup in the municipal parking lot, who?
That would be part of the
That would
event
just be-
application. It would be how many trucks, how many spaces are you looking to reserve? If it's just the back row, like where the farmer's market is, versus,
I'd put them at the end of the streets. I
Yeah,
think
that
the
would be-
municipal lot is.
That's what I
ways
suggested to
away.
her, yeah.
yeah.
Put it on the,
Or put 'em
on
in
the
the
I
middle of
thought,
the
so I
streets.
was trying to do what would be less secure, I didn't want to create any chaos.
You're blocking the streets off
But it-
anyway.
Or
Right.
driveways. People that don't have a porch, they could
So
change their
that would be
driveway to
okay.
the.
I think that's a great idea.
I think that would be better.
yeah.
Okay.
Just take one street and line them up.
Yeah.
And what, streetwise, what do you think is a reasonable?
I think it would determine how many bands you were gonna have, how many porches you had to fill.
Well, this is
and-
how it works. They have, it says here, this is the Ithaca Times, Porch Fest will be the biggest it has been. So every year it grows. This year they had about 127 different musicals.
Maybe we can start small.
No, but they don't have that many porches. So what they do is they have hour slots.
And they rotate them.
And they
Oh,
rotate them
okay.
around, and they try to do it so that they're not competing musically either.
Mm-hmm.
I've also thought about maybe doing certain streets being certain genres of music, like reggae or acoustic or,
I think you
whatever.
should use the streets that you mentioned, and I think you should use Mulberry as the artery to the fairgrounds, and use that fairgrounds if it's available for parking. I think that would make it.
So then we, then wouldn't
I think
it
you
go
could
beyond
too.
to Parsonage?
You could.
Okay, but that would be the main.
Yeah, well, it just makes sense, because we
Right,
don't have any
that's-
big open areas, but
Right.
if you get to you can get it, if we closed off Mulberry, made that a pedestrian way, and then people can go into Platt, Chestnut, Livingston, and that it has its
Right.
own little
Sure.
feel.
And that window of, say, 4 to 5 hours, that's not unmanageable?
You just have to have a provision to get residents that live on those streets in and out when they need to, so that'd be another consideration.
Yeah, there's just a certain amount of PR that goes along with getting the buy-in of all of those residents.
Right. And so will there have to be a public hearing at some point, or?
We're not changing the law.
Okay.
No.
So, no, okay.
No, I think we would,
The porch fest?
I don't know, we would
Yeah.
rely on you we'd have to communicate it to everybody, that, they know that the streets are gonna be closed in this kind of event.
And do we just put that in the village, the email that goes out, or however you do that, your minutes?
On our village site.
Your
press
village
release.
site? Okay.
Well,
Yeah, it can be on the site.
Okay.
volunteers can go door to door.
Yep.
We'll figure something.
Okay. Well, thank you. I really appreciate everyone's support. I think it'll be
thank you for
a
coming.
great event.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank
it
you.
sounds like a great event.
Cool.
Thank you.
We're gonna be in a band then. We're gonna start rehearsing tonight.
Find a porch.
Can we find someone to play a saxophone? Oh,
Yeah, we got a bongo guy.
So, we're gonna do the police report now. Sergeant Dunn. I'll read your portion of it, and then you wanna give your presentation. You probably didn't bring this with you, right?
I got it with you if you want, but
You wanna give the police report?
sure.
Okay, since you're here.
So for the September summary, the total incidents in the town were 30, total incidents in the village were 100, total tickets in the town were 35, total tickets in the village were 91, total arrests were 7, total of accidents were 6. The notes I have at the bottom, we set up the speed trailer on Knollwood Road, first day of school, and the recorded speeds for entering the village from the town side on September 9th. Out of 280 cars that were recorded that day, the average speed was 30 miles an hour in a 15-mile-an-hour zone. The total vehicles above 15 miles per hour were 279 out of the 280.
Did we write any tickets?
No, that was for the speed trailer.
Oh.
The speed trailer recording all that. So what I've done is I talked to Brett King, the principal over there. We're going to continue with the speed trailer over there for a few weeks and then provide the data. And he's going to do something in the newsletter. And then at some point right after that, we'll have a car over there to run radar. So we've given everybody the opportunity for the speed trailer and also the new signage that was put in last fall, so everybody's aware of it. Trying to acclimate everybody to the signage and, you know, entering the school zone. So that's that. One thing I want to talk about tonight, I'm not sure if you're all aware yet, I've talked to the mayor. This is, what I did was I took all the records for the 2009 Crown Victoria and I put them together from the day we got it. That's a book on the maintenance on the vehicle. Okay, I want to present that to you first. I didn't make copies for everybody because it was so thick. I figured you could pass around and take a look at it from the time we got the vehicle. I also have some other documentation here I wanted to pass out to all the board members, things that you do, board members. So this paperwork here I'm handing out now is the paperwork I provided the board back in March of 2004 while we were doing the budget.
I'm sorry, while you were doing...
Well, we were working on the budget.
Oh, okay.
In the spring. This is what I provided to the board. Trustees wanted a copy of it.
Thank you.
That kind of, what this does is I'll go over it. So it's a police vehicle inventory of the vehicles that we had at the time when I did it in March. You can see it starts at the top with the 2007 Dodge Charger 7K120 and the mileage on the vehicle, and some of the issues we had with it at the time and the work that we put into it. Then we have the 2005 Dodge Durango, which we don't have anymore. We given to the village highway DPW, and some of the significant rust and issues that it had with it at the time. And the steering rack had been replaced at the middle of March. Also, I provided the information on 7K122, which was the 2009 Ford Crown Victoria, and the mileage on that. And just a little information for every vehicle, no matter whether it's a police car or any car, every vehicle that runs, for every hour a car runs is equal to 33 miles of wear on the engine. It doesn't matter what kind of car it is. So that's what the federal government says about is the wear on a car. So at the time, I provided some of the information about what was going on with the car. And based on that, I put it in here about the possibly having a cracked intake manifold or head gasket leaking, and it's possible cylinder oil being cracked on one of the cylinders. And based at that time, the hours on the engine had approximately 225,654 miles of wear on it. So I also listed on here 7K124, which was the 2013 Ford Interceptor, and the mileage on that and what we had. Then I briefly listed all the events that we do in the village, throughout the year. As you see at the bottom, it continues on at the second page. So that's what I provided the board. Then what I did was I went over that today, and I give everybody a copy. I've updated all the mileage, all the information.
Pete, let me ask you a quick question. So just looking at this inventory, how do we, if I look at the 2007 Charger, it has 121,000 miles on it, and then a 2009 Crown Vic has 200, it has 97. I say it's 225 because of the...
Right.
I
So, and the 2000, what happens with the 7K10, the 2007 Charger, that was the only one so far now that doesn't have, when you flip through the odometer on the police cars, except for that model because it's older, the only way to get the hours off that motor is to actually hook up to the computer to it. That one you can't get. On the other cars, I forgot to explain, when you go through the odometer readings in the police cars, it gives you not only the trip A, trip B, gives you total mileage, it also gives you engine hours on our cars. They design that into all the cars now. Further back in 2007, it didn't have it, and in 2005, didn't have it. So what I did was I updated this, the same information. What I've done is updated the mileage that we've given away, the 7K121, which is 2005 Charger to DPW. I've updated the mileage on a Dodge Charger. It's up to 128,210 miles. I had 121 back in March. And then on the 7K122, I've updated the miles. Now has 104,530. That now has 7,444 hours on the engine, which is equivalent to 245,652 miles. So what I'm going with this is that basically last week, the officers were complaining to me about the smell in the cabin, about the smoke in the cabin. So I finally took the car for a ride. Previous week before that, I had the valve cover gasket replaced on the right-hand side of the engine. I thought that was the problem. It wasn't. I took it back myself. I drove it. I could smell the smoke coming into the cab. And Red Hook Auto took a look at it and determined it has the head gasket is gone. It's completely gone. So what the officers were smelling is a combination of oil and antifreeze in the cab, even without the blower going. So we parked it after I got it back from them, and the only time I've used it was for the marathon this weekend for a short period of time. When I used it this weekend, it was smoking considerably, and Red Hook Auto advised me that the car's not gonna go much further. What I also do is I get information from them to provide you. I got a price from them, so several different prices. This is an estimate by them to replace, there's two on here. One, this is for replacement of the head gasket and the labor, which they don't recommend because of the wear and tear on the engine and how old it is. So I had them write that up. You have that. And also, what they had suggested was their estimate to replace the cylinder head gaskets, to take the engine out, put it back in, and to replace those parts was not advisable because the engine overheated several times and burnt a considerable amount of oil. So there's an estimate here for $2,500 to take the engine out, take the engine apart, put a head gasket back in, put the engine back together and put it back in the car, which they're advising against for the amount of money that it costs. Their other estimate on here is to take the motor out and replace it, their labor only, to take the motor out and put a new motor in, which I went to Rhinebeck Ford and got a quote on a motor for that vehicle.
So, we only have one estimate, the Rhinebeck.
Right, I'm gonna give you the Rhinebeck Ford.
What's the $2,000 one you just talked about?
Oh, it's in
Right, see that down
Oh,
here?
yeah,
It's
I see.
an estimate that's a quote from Rhinebeck Ford for the motor and their labor.
So what's the rest of the car's condition?
The rest of the car condition is good. Right now, there's really nothing wrong except for the engine itself. The quote for the engine itself from Rhinebeck Ford was $3,423 for the motor itself. Their labor costs were $1,530 with miscellaneous, considering all the other fluids that have to go back into it. So as you can see, their labor price is a little bit higher because Red Hook Auto gives a discount of 20%. But I think possibly if we were to go the motor route, if you were to approve that, I would have all the work done at Rhinebeck Ford and have it stay there. One thing I did not get was anything in writing on what the warranty would be at this point. So that's kind of where I'm at with the Crown Vic. We've parked it. We're not using it because of the issue with the engine. Like I said, we used it on Sunday. Actually, some people complained to me about the smoke because we had parked it at one of the intersections we were doing on traffic and it was smoking and I had shut it off. So because of the amount of hours in the engine and the use this has, I'm going to ask that the board discuss with me about replacing the motor in the car at this point, if we can find the funding for it. There are a couple other avenues which I haven't talked to the mayor about. There's a possibility. I've talked to the county today. The county and the village have to sign on, and we have to sit down with the county executive. Some municipalities have contracts with them to use their auto center. There's a possibility we could get a motor for a cheaper price than that. I also talked to the owner of Rhinebeck Ford after I got the quote, and he told me to stop back and talk to him, see if there's any more they could do on the price for the motor, but I haven't gone back to talk to them yet about that. So that's kind of where we're at with the car, so I want to bring everybody up to speed and everything that we have going on, so that way I've given you the information that I have so far on it.
So when you say motor, is it a brand-new motor?
Yeah, it's a brand new motor, basically from Ford. The motor gets shipped from Ford to the dealership. The engine would be done there, or the Ford could be shipped to Rhinebeck Auto and it could be put in. It comes with everything except for that's on the outside of the engine. So you get basically the whole engine except for the alternator that's already there, the air conditioning, everything else that has to be rehooked back up to it. So, and all the parts that go in between, just in case. That's why there's a little wiggle room in there for Rhinebeck Ford for miscellaneous in case something breaks while they're taking it off the old engine and having to put it on the new engine.
Hey, Pete, is there a present value of the Crown Vic?
I looked it up the other day.
Like NADA book
Right, price? I looked it up online the other day. With the motor that's working, the price on that is somewhere between $5,000 and $7,000 on the car. So you're looking at spending roughly the amount of money on an engine that the car is worth right now. So the quote for them, for Rhinebeck Ford, was total was 52, 53, and the car is worth between $5,000 and $7,000 in the condition it's in. That's not including everything we have into the car. Our police cars have more in it. It has the cage, it has the lights. So I'm just giving you the value of the car with nothing else in it. The license plate reader is on that car. That's a $17,500 piece of equipment that's not operating now because the car's down. That we got that on a grant. We only paid $2,200 for. So that equipment that's in there now, if we do not if that car is not used, I'd have to try to relocate that into a different vehicle.
But a new police car would be about 35.
Roughly about that price, correct. And some of the stuff that
Right.
goes in this car would go into a new one.
And we just bought a new
Just
police
put it
car,
in perspective,
and we didn't have enough money for that. We had to borrow money for that.
Comparably equipped.
Comparably equipped, right.
Or taking scavenging parts out of this one.
Right. Some of the equipment in this one would go into a new one. Just like the new car, some of the stuff that went into the old car went into this one. Correct.
So can we operate with just 3 police cars?
And that's a good question. I'm glad you asked that because that Charger now has 128,000 miles on it. Like when we had this discussion in March, not only did we need one, we needed 2. So now we're in that point where we have a car with a blown head gasket where a motor doesn't work, and I have another car with 128,000 miles on it. As of right now, I just put some front steering parts into that the other day. The engine, as far as I know, right now is doing well. I'm changing oil regularly. It has just a maintenance record just like that, a couple hundred pages long. It's 2 years older than this car that now has a blown head gasket. So right now we're on borrowed time. All these events that we have, everything that's going on and everything that we do currently, I try not to have the officers use their cars. Now that's starting. I've had to use my car, and one of the officers had to use one of their cars the other day, which in the contract we have to reimburse them for their miles. Let's discuss this with the mayor. So anytime you have to use your own car to go somewhere and it's on the police time, in the contract we reimburse them the federal rate, which is 0.575 cents per mile. What we do is we have the school contract, we do the SRO program, we have the town contract, we do that. And we have sometimes 2 to 3 cars out there. What happens is when we've discussed this about going back to 3 cars, we go back to 3 cars, you may have the school, you may have the town, you may have the village, and then when one car breaks down, you can't do one of those. Or whether it's whatever the event is, a basketball game or anything like that. Especially this weekend when we had the Running Away Marathon, we used 10 police units, 4 Village of Rhinebeck, 4 state police, and 1 sheriff's office. So when you have these events, Santa Claus, same thing, Memorial Day Parade, same thing, and on and on and on. So as I do as a supervisor for the police department, I need police cars for certain intersections for these types of details. And being that the fact that when one car's in the shop and you only have 3, and I have to have an officer go to the state police for the crime lab, or they have to go to Albany like Ken did for what we do is twice annually, we take the radar units up to Albany, they have to be recertified, the data master's the same thing. So there are other things that have to come into play. Officers have to go to other courts, grand jury to testify. So when that happens, and you have a school car on, a town car on, and a village car on, if you only have 3, what is that officer going to use? So that's kind of where we're at with that.
How many times does that happen, though? A lot of times I see 2 or 3 cars out here.
Right, it happens a lot more now. What's happened now is with the SRO program, it's kind of been doing a little bit more this year. I think we're up to about 17,500 in use on that with the school. That's about 2 to 3 times a week.
That's when you're just up at the school, right?
Right, they go up to the school. And that's not including any of the basketball games or any other events that go on. And what happens with these big events with anything going on is that, you know, if a car is in the shop and we're down to 3 and we don't have a village in town, then what do you do when you have another event and you don't have a police car? Or you have 3 cars and you have that going on, I don't have a car to go out into to back somebody up. So that's where I'm trying to explain to you as a police department are running and doing everything that we have. It's been, for all these things that we're doing, you need the vehicles. I mean, I can't emphasize enough on all of these things that we've used them for. And with all these events that keep growing, all the more events that want to come here, that's kind of where we're at with it. It was difficult in the years past to have 3. 4 made it extremely a lot easier. And we took on the school resource officer program a few years ago, and we're up there. And then all the other things that people ask us for. So I'm kind of at my wit's end. I'm just trying to figure out how to do all of this, and if you do decide to go back to 3 cars, how am I going to do it?
Well, the only thing I'm saying is we as a board got to look at these expenses. We just bought a new police car.
Right.
Got a new police station, so we have to find ways to kind of try to look at everything.
Right.
Maybe you can use one of these, maybe we can fix this thing for $1,000 and just use it to go up to the school, just, because it just sits right there. It looks like the last time you came to us, you said, I need a car for the school, because it's good for a present. So maybe we can use something like this car, just to sit there. It's not going to be used a lot, a couple miles up the road, back and forth.
Right. Well, if we would put a motor in this, I'd prefer to do that with 7K120, which has 128,000 miles on it, and is the oldest car, because that would be the next scheduled car to go. I didn't plan for this, this is something that happened.
Right.
You try to take care of them. Like I said, I brought you the record in. If you look at that over the last, since 2009, it's a considerable amount of, maintenance we put into this vehicle. It's not like it wasn't maintained.
So do you have a recommendation?
My recommendation right now is to replace the motor.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Did Rhinebeck Ford also make the same recommendation not to replace the cylinder head gaskets?
No, because I took it to Red Hook Auto first. They do the majority of the work on it, and they do the majority of the work because they are cheaper. I have a good working relationship with them. They also work on all the state police cars, so I know that they know what they're doing. And that's why they put the recommendation is they've done work for us and haven't fixed things because they will not charge you for certain things that you really don't need. They're good people. We've taken our cars there for years. The state uses them, I started using them, and they just do good work. My only concern was, I said, was they gave me a much better rate to take the motor out and put the new motor in and even have it delivered there. My thing is with Ford, I need to sit down with somebody at the dealership like the owner and say, listen, if we buy an engine from you, what's the warranty, and should all the work be done right at Ford, basically?
Yeah.
Instead of getting the motor and having them do it just because it's $400 cheaper may not be the way to go.
Yeah, because then there's no finger pointing.
Exactly.
Bought from Ford, installed by Ford.
Right, it's all done at the dealership. So, I mean, that's kind of where we're at.
So right now, we don't have it in the.
Right now, it's not being used, so.
No, we don't have it in the, obviously, we don't have that kind of money in the repair budget line.
No, not any equipment, and I didn't talk to her. I know the balance used to be around 22 or 23 in capital reserve. Gosh, I hate to take it from there, but that's, if it could come from somewhere, that's where it would have to come from, I
Right.
guess. I didn't sit down and have a conversation with Karen, so I don't know.
I thought we'd use that for the new car.
No, we financed the new car.
Back when we were talking about buying a new car, and we're talking about charging for police coverage at the events,
Right.
one thing that we did stumble upon is that there is somebody that we bill by the hour, or no, by the mile. Is it town?
We bill the town for the federal rate, correct, they pay
Right.
for mileage.
Right.
And the school pays an hourly rate.
Right.
And
So
town
what
pays-
you have though here is that by the mile.
Right, 1 hour equals about 33 miles of wear on any engine that runs.
Right.
And we're charging the federal mileage rate for the town, which is .575 right now currently.
Right, so but if you're on a shift for 8 hours
Right.
and you drive 5 miles, you're charging by the mile.
Right.
But the car's running for 8 hours.
Right.
And 8 times 33 is 264. Right. So do we have to look into a better
Yes.
way to get compensated for
Sure.
our
Yeah,
car's
absolutely.
time?
You know,
Yes.
we're having this discussion now, all these events, you know, I hate to bring it up, you need to start charging. I mean, all of these events. And now another event. And, you know, I think currently right now, as you know, Matt Lennick, who just ran this marathon, is the only one that reimburses the Village of Rhinebeck for police coverage, except for the town and the school, which are contractual. They're contractual.
Well, the other marathon paid too, right? Feet?
Feet did, I'm sorry, that was
The
new
feet
this year.
marathon.
Correct, they did pay. So it's feet
Right.
and running away, my mistake. That was her first year. But then she's already filed her application for next year, so she wants to have hers again before the Memorial Day Parade, which is another event we added this year. But she did pay, correct.
Right.
So we've talked about other things, looking at the rates we charge the town, looking at the rates we charge the school, and all these things, all these other events. Again, you know, all these events, the cars run. The lights are on, you know, there are many intersections, computers are on, so yes.
You know, some of them are, the events are specific to the village, and then some of the events are just, they're not in the village, but you have stepped up coverage because of bigger events at the fair, right?
Right.
And if you look, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 4 events that are fairgrounds driven.
Right. We step up coverage for the fair, we step up coverage for the Sheep and Wool Festival, we step up coverage for the car show.
We need to have a conversation with them.
Yeah, a couple other ones. So yes, do we put extra cars out there and there's extra miles of wear and tear? Absolutely, no doubt about it. Because when you bring, like Andy said, you could have 35 to 40,000 people here this weekend. 35 or 45,000 people brings a lot of extra calls. There's no doubt about it. You can't invite that many people and not have the call volume go up.
They bought the fire department, right?
That's what I was just
Let's
thinking.
look at the rate and, you know, maybe look at when we're charging for an officer.
Right.
If the officer comes with a car, then maybe we should be considering that, you know.
How much is it a mile we charge a town?
0.575.
0.575.
Yeah.
Times 264.
But maybe we should just be calculating an hourly rate for the vehicle at 33 miles per,
Instead of the federal mileage rate for the mile.
yeah.
I mean, it would just be, just a flat fee for the car is $151 a shift.
Right.
For 8
And then-
hours.
For 8 hours.
Yes. So you break, you know. you
Without
break
the
it.
man.
And then put the man on top of that.
Yeah, and that's what we do with the town. They only, I mean, they pay the mileage, but we're
Right,
only
the town
getting
currently pays
1/32 of.
$50 an hour.
Exactly right. Yeah, we're not getting enough for the car.
Right.
So you get $50 an hour for the man, and then you're getting the 0.575 for the mileage. The last contract that was negotiated, that ended, was, the last time that was raised was 2006, which was $50 an hour is where it ended, and it hasn't gone up since.
We've talked about, Pete and I, about,
Is that what it is an hour?
looking at that and bringing it forth for the town after, would be the next,
Negotiation.
not now, because their budget cycle is, right now, it'd be the, you know, we'd start talking about it after the first of the year, maybe.
Right.
Come
And
up
the
with a new
contracts,
figure.
as they're worded, the town of Village, it just rolls over. If it's not negotiated, it just completely rolls over. So, and that rate, like I said, 2006 was the last time the village raised the rates. It went 2006, 5, and 4. So it went to 40-something, 48, and then 50. So 2006 was the last time the village raised the rates for the town patrol.
Another option would be for the town to purchase, finance, and maintain a vehicle. It could, you know,
Used specifically for them.
And it would only be used
Specifically
for
for the
that.
town.
Yeah.
It all goes for town patrol. Doesn't go to school, it does all town patrol.
Right.
That'd be a great idea. So that's a good possibility. I mean, if that would be, they're open to that, that'd be wonderful.
So what do you want to do now?
What I would like to do is get the car back on the road and put a motor in, if that's up to you, because I can't obviously authorize that.
Well, what line would that come under?
It's probably gonna come out of the capital reserve for the police department, which is 25,000.
Yeah, I was under the impression that was all gone, so.
No, it's in there, that's, but.
Not that I was aware of. Last time I looked, it was 22 or 23.
So are you gonna work with Rhinebeck Ford, or are you
I'm gonna work with
the
Rhinebeck
county issue, the county?
I'd like to work with Rhinebeck Ford on it, and then I'd also like to talk to the county, because that's something
Okay.
that you as a mayor and the county executive and the auto center, it has to be, contracts have to be drawn up with the county.
Okay. Well,
Future
look into
down the
that,
road.
see what they can do,
Right.
and, you know, we'll authorize the repair up to a certain amount, right?
Or Are there any other costs that you see on the horizon that would take priority over this type of repair?
You know, in that car?
No, just in general.
No.
I mean, if
not
we're
right.
taking from the reserve. and
The
it's got-
reserve's really there to buy the next car, is what the idea is for.
Yeah.
Right. In the past, just speaking from experience, what normally we did with budgets was capital reserve was there to put $5,000, $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 in, and after so many years, you had the money to buy the car. And straight up, because of the tax cap, that hasn't happened over the last previous bunch of years, so the money's hasn't been there. So as what happened is you push off buying a car, I'm just saying from mileage and perspective honestly, is that the cars get older and they need to be replaced. So as you get more miles on them.
So Pete, you know, the Crown Vic is not, it's a common police car.
Right.
So other areas have the same issue. Do you know what other people do, other jurisdictions? Do they repair the car or do they not repair
It
the car?
depends on the year of the car. Most of the departments, not everybody yet, has gotten rid of their Crown Vic. So last year they made a Crown Victoria, it was 2011. A lot of agencies went out and bought them ahead of time because they weren't going to make them anymore. And the majority of the departments that I've talked to that still have them, the cars are well up over 100,000 miles. So they're just about phased out from most departments. You'll see the sheriff's office here has a couple left, over in Ulster County has a couple left. But mostly everybody's switched over to the new Ford, the Dodge, or the new Ford Explorer, which we have.
So they're not fixing them?
No, they're running them basically right into the ground, so there's nothing left of them, and then they're getting rid of them.
The comptroller's office defines the useful life of a police car at 5 years, I believe, but
It is.
typically we get 8, sometimes
Mhm.
considerably more than that out of the car, you know.
Because of the mileage situation, we keep the cars longer for years than we do mileage.
Sure.
I know agencies that have cutoffs, certain agencies that have contracts, in their union contracts that say, when your car hits 150,000 miles, that car comes off the road, it's gone. Because that's what some agencies have, we don't have that, but we keep our cars for time-wise, so.
Mhm. I'm just trying to get a perspective.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So for $5,000, we should probably be able to get 2, 3, 4 years more out of this particular car.
Correct.
So.
So that's what I'm looking for.
In the meantime, we can put money into the capital, more in capital
Reserve,
reserve.
capital reserve for next
So we
year.
can buy a new car in
Right.
2
I
years,
mean, I was
3
really
years.
hoping I wouldn't want this to happen, I don't plan for this to happen, and do another budget, put money in capital reserve for the next car, which would have been the Dodge Charger, because that's the oldest car. So,
I like the fact that you're gonna move that to be the one that you use back and forth
yeah,
between school.
absolutely, because that's getting to the point,
Less
like I
intense
said,
use.
it's a good car, but again, it's got almost 130,000 miles on it. And we're not talking 130,000 miles of your regular home car. These are cars that turn around, pull people over, they're accelerated on, they're police cars, so.
So is that why, I mean, the other day, at the elementary school, is that why the new car was parked up at the elementary school?
Yeah, it was up there again today. Today
No,
we
it's
had.
today, yes.
Today we had the lockdown drill. The school did the lockdown drill. We do a few of those a year.
Mhm.
So Officer Scotty was up there as SRO, and then I went out to also for it. So both of us were up there this morning.
So we don't need to authorize anything as a board until till we have to draw from the capital reserve fund, right?
You gotta just authorize the expenditure. So
Well, I thought we were gonna get
transfer
some more
funds.
estimates, right?
Yeah, we can give them the authorization to
yeah.
proceed with
Yeah.
best.
I'll make a motion to approve the repair of the police car up to
$5,253.20.
$52,53.20.
Second.
Scott. Discussion.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Pete.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, water.
And I'd like to summarize the monthly report that was submitted by Tom. So in summary, the water treatment plant treated 13,903,000 gallons, had 209,000 gallons of backwash, for a net of 13,694,000 to the distribution. The only service item in the water treatment plant today, this last month, was some packing on pump number 3 down in the basement level, which had a small leak in it. In distribution, there was 2 areas. One was a new tap and service open on 17 Crosmore, and the second was assisting Jeff Decker. He ran into some issues in getting the new water main installed up at Stortini, and he just needed some advice and counsel. So We just offered moral support, not equipment or anything to do anything, but it was up there just to help him through the process of getting that set up. Some of the additional activities that we took on that were not in the report, the storage tank, the reservoir up on Violet Hill, we actually had an inspection by divers done a few weeks ago. The last time this was inspected was in year 2000, and it was done with robotic cameras. This time we sent divers down into the tank. The summary of that is the tank's in great shape, right? It's good to know. There is one repair item that we should schedule and talk about. It's not an immediate, but the ladder going down inside is corroded and it should be replaced. All this, by the way, is on a video, which I think Pat has or somebody has right now.
I put it back in Tom's box.
But if we have a
fascinating.
copy of it, there's a
Good to watch.
complete video of the whole diver's inspection while they're talking you through everything they found. There was like a 1/4 of an inch to a 1/2 inch of sediment on the bottom, but nothing to be discerned about or nothing that needed cleaning right away. So overall, I'm very pleased with how that water tank is holding up. It's in great shape. The only thing I would recommend is coming up with a process outside of that area to kind of keep it cleaner. All right, we did some repair actions up there with Dave Long on repairing some of the lights that weren't working and some of the heating cables and everything, and to also check to see what we needed to hook in for a generator if we needed, and that was all there, all working. It just needed good maintenance to clean it up, but mowing of the grass, mowing around it, making that place look like we own it, I think is something that we should talk about and figure out a plan to make that work. Probably the biggest item this month was the lagoon sludge removal. We had a contract in place to take 400,000 gallons of sludge out of the lagoon. That was set to happen. We had SpectraServe come in, and they had been awarded the contract to come in and do that. Immediately, we started running into issues with them, right? First, it was we need to send a truck down to see if we can get a truck down there. Well, they knew about the road, number one. Then the next thing was, well, we need to get an experienced driver down there. Then the next thing was, well, we need to get a different truck. So it was just one thing after the other, to finally, when we get a truck down there, and they hooked the vacuum up to remove the sludge, the density of the sludge was greater than what the vacuum could handle. Now, maybe we did help that condition because we drained the lagoon with the thinking that the purpose of getting the sludge removal out is to get water out of the lagoon so you could remove the sludge. But therefore, by draining it, we changed the density of the sludge, and their spec on it was 3% of what they could pump through the vacuum. We were exceeding that according to their specifications, so they could not pump out the lagoon, bottom line. We were taking some additional steps now to get our own tests done of the density of the sludge and determine what water content we should have so that we make effective use of the pumping out of that. So we're trying to figure out how to get a good relative sample, lowering the water to a specific rate, taking a sample, lowering the water again, taking a sample, and sending them on and get them analyzed. And we're also in contact with the bidder to understand what their complaints are about the road. We've sent them various emails. They haven't responded to what they would like to see changed to the road or why they can't use the road, so we're pursuing that, but we ran into a roadblock on the lagoon.
So what's the status of the contractual relationship?
They were the bidder, and so they are still the bidder on the contract. So, Sean, I think to answer one of those things, we could say, well, you've been awarded this bid, you have to do it.
No, did we write them a
Yeah.
contract, though?
Yeah,
Do we
we
have a-
spec the contract,
Yeah,
our
okay.
engineering
Well,
department
no, I know,
spec
but
the
do we have a signed contract?
Yes.
Okay.
We do have a signed contract with them. So we can force that contract, I believe. Rich, tell me if how we can change it or not, or we
Never
can.
seen it.
Yeah.
I'd like to get a copy.
I don't know where that's, I have a copy in my file, and I think there's one downstairs.
Yeah, you would have seen it, would have gone with the bid package, right?
You would have seen the contract?
I don't believe I saw that one.
Well, maybe before it was signed. Probably, right?
So then maybe that's something I need to check into, because what I have looked like it was a signed contract.
Okay,
Like
so,
back
but
there.
are they saying we're not returning to the job?
No,
Because
they
of
are
X, Y,
not.
and Z?
They haven't said either. They've just said we have issues with executing the bid. And the two issues are the
Put 'em on
density of the
notice.
sludge and the condition of the road. Right.
We need to
No.
write them a letter
I need to get a copy of the contract.
and then put them on notice. And you have to look and see if the RFP had stipulated that they visit the site, they're familiar with the site, and then as far as the percentage of water or content of
Yeah,
the
so
sludge.
I talked to the town engineer, and that all was given to them in terms of the condition of the road, how the access was. I didn't see it in the contract, but supposedly they did a test drive, but I don't have any
The
witness.
contract would reference the
Yeah,
RFP, so
I can't say whether they actually test drove a truck down there or not, to be able to do that. The other thing is I need to check into is, the density, right? I think that's really the biggest issue, because when we did set this up, as I mentioned, we drained the lagoon to as low as we could drain it to get as much advantage of getting much sludge out. And so that was probably worked against us, and it was also probably the driest week we've had, in the month of September, which baked it after we drained the lagoon. So that also went against us in terms of timing. So I'm working with the engineering. They wrote the spec. This is not new. Kingston did this. New Paltz does it this way. So we're trying to reach out and find out what they did so we can understand how to execute. So before I think we put them on notice, I think we need to understand what we do to execute on this, unless you advise otherwise.
well, I think we would want to know that if we provided them with information on the makeup of the sludge, and it had a certain percentage of water, and it was pumpable, and that it doesn't meet that, so that would be our responsibility, that if we didn't meet.
That was not specified. in
Well,
the
you just
contract.
said pumpable 3%.
That's what they came back with. It says they can only pump up to 3% density. I didn't see it, and I need to go back through the contract. I agree, that's a good point. We should look at that. Yeah.
I think that's enough on that topic.
All right, I'll do that, and I'll let you all know.
Let me ask you one quick question. Is there any issue that we don't pump it right away? I mean, is it time
No.
sensitive?
Let me answer that, because I've asked that question. No, there is not. If it gets to the point where it was the last time it was pumped, and I forget what year that was, it was several years ago, when the cattails were growing and the weeds had taken over and everything else. If we get to that point, that was beyond. Right now, according to Tom, we are not beyond that point. So delaying it by not doing it right now is not a catastrophe, but we do have a 3-year contract in place with them.
Great.
That's it.
Wastewater.
Wastewater, obviously, we heard from the engineer regarding the Headworks Improvement Project, and the bids were rejected earlier in tonight's meeting. Quick summary, we treated 3.3 million gallons. We processed 43,600 gallons of sludge, and we processed 4,769 pounds of sludge. I think the end of September was also William Hates marked his last day with the village, so just acknowledge his service. He's a great employee. And we also conducted some interviews to fill Mr. Hates' position, and they were conducted earlier in October and at the end of September. Should we go into?
We're gonna have to go into executive session
for that.
For that.
Yeah. And that's it with respect to wastewater.
Fire.
Fire. First, I have a recommendation from the Rhinebeck Fire Department, Inc. on 2 new firefighters. The letter is from the President, Kyle Amy. This letter is to inform you that on Monday, October 5th, 2015, Diego Marietta and Tiana Corbett were found favorable by our investigating committee and members of the fire department unanimously, approved both for membership with the department. So I'd like to make a motion that this board accept the recommendation of Rhinebeck Fire Department, Inc. to add those 2 members to the fire department.
Second.
All those in
Discussion.
favor? Oh,
Aye.
discussion.
You got that. All those in
Sorry,
favor?
I'm not used to that, I'm sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
And the monthly call volume breakdown for the month of September, the fire department responded to 20 EMS calls in the town, 17 in the village, and provided mutual aid 2 times for a total of 39 EMS calls. They responded to 3 fire calls in the town, 5 in the village, provided mutual aid 6 times for a total of 14 fire calls. And then they responded to 4 motor vehicle accidents in the town, 0 in the village, for a total of 4. To date, they have responded to 526 EMS calls, 202 fire calls, 54 motor vehicle accidents, for a total of 782 calls.
Street Department.
Okay, the monthly report reads as follows. They worked at the firehouse parking lot right out here, removed the concrete sidewalk, and replaced it with quarry item 4. And this was done at the police garage to gain pitch for the drainage. They widened the firehouse entrance and exit by removing broken sidewalks and curbs and replaced it with item 4. The sidewalk was broke from trucks driving over it, and the whole parking lot blacktop was completed out here. That was a job done in collaboration with the town, using their new paver that they have, which is in collaboration with a couple other towns. So, got a lot done out here. Somers Drive blacktop repair was started. The road is in rough shape and needs repaving along with many of our streets. Manor and Knollwood Road, we're waiting for the catch basin to be made. There's a special catch basin being made for that. That should be coming maybe next week, Mike told me. Sidewalk repair was completed on Chestnut Street. Brush was picked up on the north side and the south side, and that was completed on 10/8/15. Mike and John are making a request that, they're saying fall is here and please don't mix the brush with the leaves. That means that they'd like to keep the brush separate from the leaves because we have a vacuum truck which they can use to come around and suck up the leaves. And if there's brush mixed in there with the leaves, it's a lot harder to pick up. And thank you for not placing piles on or near the storm drains. The brush staging area has been ground up and they have plenty of mulch. That means they have new mulch now that was just ground up, and we have plenty of mulch for sale, $20 a yard. Please call Pat and she'll arrange for the delivery. It's free delivery within the village, and there's a charge for within the town. What's that charge, Pat?
25, I think it's 25.
Okay. The highway department cleared debris from the drainage ditches to help the water flow. And I'd like to thank Dave's Tree Service for donating a white pine, and it was planted at the Legion Park. That's it for the street department.
You got the thing on the LED streetlights?
I don't have that. I saw that in the email, but I don't have it with me.
Okay.
Do you have something?
It's something we need to act on, I read it, for the savings.
Yes, we do.
Well, I asked them a question too.
They responded.
They responded.
Oh, they
We
did?
gave you a list of all ours. It's potential savings of.
287 lights.
Yeah.
So basically, they've offered with their standard maintenance, routine maintenance, as they come upon the lights, to replace the halide lights I think we have now, with LEDs, and the potential savings in year 1 is $1,900, something about that.
That's as the lights need to be replaced, right?
Well, as they do their routine maintenance, I don't know exactly.
Right.
But they send you the list of all the ones. So we have to give them approval to go ahead with that plan.
So what we'll end up with, though, I mean, I guess what I would want to know is how long before everything's turned over, because they give off way different light.
Right.
And so we'll end up with,
Well, it could take 5 years, 6
Well, that-
years before they replace all the lights.
That's my
That was the question I wanted to ask him.
Howie's gonna look into this and bring us a recommendation at
Okay.
our
have a
next
special
meeting.
meeting next week if you want.
Yeah.
Because if it's part of routine maintenance, then it
Yeah.
could all be done at the same time.
Could be.
Right, could be routine,
Or
okay.
it could be phased in and then they'll call it.
How about the out
We'll
of
have white
title?
light and then we'll have yellow lights.
We have a proposal to provide out of title pay for
Scott Min?
Scott Min for auto mechanic duties. So right now he works out of title, does mechanic work for us, so the proposal is $2 an hour during those periods. So we have a memorandum of agreement that has been sent to the union already for their approval. So I'll make the motion to,
How often, or how many hours a week are usually allocated to mechanic work?
it depends on what's going on. And that would be administered by John Fenton. Approved, all the hours would be. So there's a timesheet in here that
Yes, there is.
there was, what he's trying to do is condense it into like days at a time. So like the one, this is when it started,
16 hours.
but I don't think, this was in September, wasn't it?
Yes, this is the end of September.
No, I think we're talking about
Last paper.
retroactive to October 1st was gonna be my recommendation.
So then these two would not be covered.
That's correct.
And your motion was?
That was my motion.
Second.
Discussion? All's in favor?
Aye. Can I just go back to the lighting situation?
No.
So, I know, not at this hour. So the lights, the new lights have a different hue.
Yes.
So are we opposed to that, or are they?
No, I guess I just want to know the time frame on routine maintenance. Does routine maintenance mean in 1 year everything will be changed over?
No. I think it means, and that's what I want a clarification
That's
from
what I
them.
want you to ask.
As the light goes out, then they're gonna replace it with the LED light. So it could take,
I don't think it's,
That's
that's not my
maintenance.
understanding. So you're gonna find this out for us.
I'll
and
find
bring
that out
this-
for you.
Bring this to us.
Same thing you said 5 minutes ago.
no, but you
Are there any
were
local
talking about the
communities that
light.
use it?
You didn't like the color of the
No,
lights.
what I was saying
so.
is that I just didn't want the village to be
In the
with
past, you didn't
all
like
different
color lights.
types of light
That's what's gonna happen,
fixtures.
I guarantee you.
Okay.
for 5 years.
Okay,
Or at least tell us, yes.
I'll let you know.
It'll be 5 years before they're all
Okay.
turned over.
okay.
Planning and zoning,
Can
anything?
I just,
No.
so
Yes.
the motion going back to Scott was to receive out of title pay as of October 1,
Yes,
Yes,
$2 more an hour. Okay,
yeah,
while he performs that work.
right,
yeah, for mechanic work.
okay. I just wanted-
Anything, we have to,
Just quickly, 3 CO searches, 8 building permits, that's out of the building department, obviously. Planning board, we had a sign application, 1 sign application fee, 3 site plan application fees, 1 special permit site plan fee, and in the zoning board, there was no activity,
okay,
as far as fees are concerned.
skipping right over police, tree commission.
Oh, boy, here we go. Did you guys get get a copy of this?
There's not in here.
Yes.
Okay, so,
I do not, but that's okay.
I went around with John Fenton, we were looking at some of these tree permit applications here, so, the list there. We're waiting for, to get a few more so we can go to, put it out to bid, the different things here,
And
so.
this is still where the homeowner pays for 50%?
Yeah, there's the people, we talked to a few of the people, we emphasized that it's 50/50, and they understood it. What we have is, we have a few people that wanted some pruning done, but then when John and I looked at the trees, we might as well just have them taken down, because by the time you prune them, it's the same price as taking the whole thing down. That's what we found in the past, but, so we want to get all these trees together, and, did you have a list of trees to ask Central Hudson? You? He?
Me?
Yeah.
No,
I thought I heard that.
there was
I
a
have it
list.
on my computer.
You
What?
have it. Okay, did you give it to John Fenton?
Meg had the list.
Megan and I went over it together, it's on my computer.
Okay.
Okay, well, John Fenton needs to see that, because he knows somebody who works at Central Hudson.
Mike knows the guy at Central Hudson. We met with him. Mike is supposed to be working with Central Hudson representative. I sat there, the Central Hudson rep will agreed to ride along with Mike when Mike calls him.
Okay, maybe John doesn't know that.
Okay.
Okay. Again, Dave's Tree Planting planted a tree in the Legion Park. I thank them for doing that. The most important thing here is there's a fall tree planting on Saturday, November 7th. We're looking for volunteers. It'll be 9 a.m. It'll probably go until around noon time. So Saturday, November 7th, we're looking for some volunteers. Also, the next day, the Thompson Mazzarella Park, they're going to be planting 22 trees in the park. So we're also looking for volunteers for that. And I think that's it.
Okay.
Special event requests.
Parks and Rec, we had a fall festival on Saturday. Thank you, Trustee Bassett, for attending. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Sorry.
Pat Kuhn, no apologies, accepted. Pat Kuhn placed in the pie baking contest, so
Wow.
next time she bakes a pie, make sure you get on her list.
Okay, I need one for Thanksgiving.
There you go. But we already hit on the bulk of the park stuff with the grant application earlier, so that'll be the short and sweet there. We have a request from the Northern Dutch, for a Northern Dutchess Crop Walk on Sunday, October 25th. Is this a new one, Pat? Is this a,
They've done it every year.
Yeah.
okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the Crop Walk, Northern Dutchess Crop Walk, October 25th, 12:30.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Then we have a request from a Susan Marsa. She wants to set up a table at, is it at the, where is the table? At the farmer's market on October 18th. It will be to hand out literature regarding the 2016 presidential campaign. Do we, what?
There's a certain area where they have to set up. right?
Yeah, but do we, I don't know, I know we get them from the political parties, but do we get them from individuals before? Have we done that before?
Not that I'm aware of.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Where do you want to send it? I don't have the application here.
At the farmer's market.
For what?
Hand out literature for the upcoming 2016 presidential campaign.
It's under special requests. Everybody should have it under special requests.
We have the letter.
I don't have it. It's okay. Oh, here it is.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
So,
Isn't that pretty vague information to do with the 2016 presidential? Could it be
Could be anything, I don't know what it is.
controversial stuff? I guess, I don't know.
It's your parking lot.
Well, maybe, do we need more information?
we're not going to get it before October 18th.
Well, I mean,
It's one thing if it was the party that wants to set up.
it's
then
2006,
you know,
yeah.
but this is, I don't know.
Right. Okay. So, no
Is there
action?
even a need to come to us for that type of approval?
That's the question.
Property.
Well, I mean, if they're just walking around and it's a public area, but I guess this is, she wants to set up a table somewhere, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's utilizing your parking area. I don't know where she wants to set up, what she wants to do, how many spaces she wants.
Maybe it's too vague.
Yeah.
No action taken.
So we tell her we need more details, Pat, about space, number of people, et
We'll
cetera.
get back to her in November.
Yeah. Okay,
We
so,
have a year,
What's that?
the 2016 presidential campaign.
right. She wants to get on it early. Porch Fest, we got the Duchess Debs. They want to set up a table at the farmer's market to promote their,
And other local businesses.
well, the other local businesses have to make their own table. That we don't get to approve
This is no
that.
different than when Paul was mentioning the Boy Scouts selling pumpkins or previously today, remember?
Yes.
It's not any different than that.
Correct. I mean, other than this group is not selling anything, right? We're just asking, they're asking permission to put up a table to promote, and I'm assuming to fundraise.
Fundraise.
Yeah, for this team. So I will make the motion to approve this application from the Pat Murphy and the Duchess Debs.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I guess just to your point, that they would have to make arrangements with other local businesses too.
Yeah, I've spoken to him about this, and the approval is specific to the table at the farmer's market, this motion. All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The one for the feet marathon. Did Pete sign off on this one? Pat, do you know? Okay, this is a repeat event. I know there were no problems last year, so I'll make the motion to approve as submitted pending approval and coordination with the police department.
Second.
Discussion?
Yes. I would just, do you think though with all of these event applications that we approve that we should have a calendar?
Yes.
Of which we start to show all of these things so that we can
Yes.
refer to it?
Trying to work on it.
Yes, we're
Because
working on it.
we're talking about duplicity sometimes with, even just now, we were talking about Porch Fest and when does that, so we should probably have a calendar in our, every month in our things that we can refer to. It could be the same one in the book.
It'll be on the tablet.
Okay.
What size are those tablets?
They're like this, deck of cards. Okay.
Right, so Kyle's feet was approved, subject to approval of feet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have, mine comes next here. It's correspondence from, this is about the trees, Marie Trombini over on Prospect. Well, that's, it just came in the book next, I'm flipping pages, so. We're getting to the lines, don't worry. Okay. Howie, anything on this, or Rich,
Well,
anything on this?
I dug this out. This is from January of 2012. I know we spoke about this back then. Maybe I can give this to you to refresh your memory.
I barely remember 2012 at this point.
Yeah, I know.
She
The
came in
the
here.
tree actually was planted in the fall of 2011, so, and it's about the street, the right-of-way.
Where's the tree?
Right here, somewhere around here.
So it's on this person's property. That goes like this.
No, it's supposed to be in the right-of-way. That's the whole idea. It's in the
And where is it?
right-of-way.
Oh, it's not in the right of way?
It is.
We think it, yeah.
Yeah.
When, this was back when Jason Hemenick was on the, because he lives right here. He was on the board, he figured out where it could go.
She wants a tree moved because it impedes her passage into her shed apparently.
Yeah, but it doesn't.
Okay.
If you wanna look at it, you can.
So your recommendation is to leave the tree where it is?
Yeah, that's my recommendation, but we have to reaffirm that that it's in the right-of-way.
Okay.
Want this, Rich?
It shows where the tree is.
Is that where you're sending it?
Well,
The
I don't
tree's
think
not on
I have
there.
to show them where the tree is, so I'll talk about it in a minute.
Okay. So the next,
the issue?
what's that?
The tree commission planted a tree, which we thought was in the right of way, and it blocks access to the landowner's shed, apparently.
But it doesn't. So the whole issue is,
She didn't ask for the tree.
Right.
Some other neighbor asked for the tree. And I think the way the lot is drawn, it's like, I think it's a huge flag lot.
Right.
So that person actually owns the edge of the road. And they asked for it to be planted, and this person has a shed behind the tree now. Somewhere, I don't know where the shed is, part of the tree.
It's about 100 feet away from the tree, the shed.
What came first?
The shed, probably.
Okay.
I'll take you over there. We'll go on a little,
Little road
road
field
trip.
Okay. So, the Lions Club would like, to partner with the village, for the village to, apply to the Frost Foundation for, a grant to install fencing at the mini park. Do you want, why don't you
correct.
take this away, Scott?
Yeah, essentially, you know, to the extent that you guys aren't familiar with what the Lions Club does in the village and the surrounding area, it's this organization of men and women that are community-minded. We're not political or anything like that. We just try and do what's right for the community. And one of the many things that we do is maintain, with cooperation from the village, the mini park that's on the corner of, I guess, South Parsonage and North Road. Is that correct?
North Park?
North Park, yeah. And I think going back to maybe, it might have been Irene or one of the bad storms, in addition to horrible winters and snow plowing and things like that, there was a fence that fenced in the perimeter of a portion of the perimeter of the park that fell down and it couldn't be used anymore, fell into disrepair. So it was ultimately removed. And then I think there might have been some work that was done along that roadway at some point in time. So the club kind of tabled putting in any new fence because of some of the work that was either going on or that was supposed to take place. But now we're at a point where we believe that that work has been done. Dave Houlihan in the club, he's kind of spearheaded this project, and he's met with Mike, I believe, from Highway Department to go over some of the concerns that they may have with the location. And together they came up with what's depicted in this photograph of where they'd like the fencing to lay out along the park. The fencing is of a pretty high quality. It's not fencing that would, I think before it was a split rail, and it just kind of easily fell over. Every time the parking area was plowed, the snow would get plowed up against it and ultimately, you know, have it fall down. And the club's invested a substantial amount of money and time over the past several years into trying to beautify the park, whether it be equipment, repainting the gazebo, mulching, remulching, doing various repairs. So this is something that's high on the list for the club to want to do to protect children that are playing in the park from entering into the street, and also to prevent cars that are in the street from entering into the park. So Dave has met with somebody that's capable of supplying the materials and installing it. The estimate is $6,480. We are under the impression that we can apply to the Frost Fund with the village's cooperation, because we're not a 501c3, so we can't directly get the funds from the Frost Foundation. But we were hoping that we could partner with the village for the application purposes. We don't intend to use any village manpower or anything like that to install the fence. It's really just to try and get the funds in place so that it can be installed.
Well, you have a quote here, right, for the installation of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have some questions about the fence.
Sure. I'm not an engineer.
No, I know, I'm not gonna answer engineering questions, but.
Yep.
It's a guardrail. It's not really a fence, right?
Yeah.
And is it a single horizontal or a double horizontal band?
Single.
Single, and 54 inches high. Planning board's gonna hate it.
John, is this similar to what's
do
going,
you see
what's
54I?
installed up at the high school, as you enter into the high school on the right-hand side?
One guardrail post or 8 by 8
Have you looked at,
54.
you know? what I'm talking about?
You know, I'm not really comfortable, I'm not entirely sure.
Or is most of it buried?
And the club
If
is
3 feet's buried.
flexible with the
36.
the fencing. The real primary concern that the club has is that they don't put in a fence that's gonna fall over again, that can't even withstand plowing, and things like that. And that's really, you know, where we're at. But the thing is that and we're open to suggestions as to what should be used, or, you know, but we needed to come to you.
That's
to
why
the
I'm
board
bringing
with
the
something.
one up that the high school has, that goes along their sidewalk on the right-hand side as
Yeah.
you drive into the high school. It's kind of a car barricade,
I think
rugged.
it's similar to that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's,
There's no way it's 54 inches high, though. You want a bumper height, more or less.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
what is this, though? Is this a fence or is it a guardrail? Is it a guardrail to keep cars from going into the playground, or is it a fence to keep kids from running out?
yeah,
It's
you
a
can't do
barrier.
both.
It's a barrier, yeah.
It's a barrier.
Yeah.
See, I think I'd rather see a fence rather than a guardrail. And I know, I understand what you're talking about as far as withstanding plowing and stuff, but if you put it in the right spot, you don't need to plow up against it. And I just know that I've heard comments, and actually I brought this up to Mike Mike Madigan, before this whole thing came to fruition. I said, I made the suggestion, why don't you guys put a fence around it? Because I see kids running from the park, from the playground all the time, and the street's right there, and there's no kind of like break, like catch-all. And so, I mean, I'm just saying, this is
The
a
thing with the
guardrail.
fence is when you're looking from the road, you don't see the whole park.
Well, like that
This is
guardrail
open.
at
This
the
is
end
more
of the
open.
2 parking spots, or 3 parking spots on the north side would make sense.
I mean, what type of, you want like a 5-foot
Well, no,
fence?
see, but look, what we're doing really, it's a good point, Heath. It's like, the guardrail makes sense
Right
here,
there, yep.
but then like here really should be like a fence.
And that's exactly where it fell down. So, I mean, that's,
Is there
I
an
mean, if you moved it
alternative?
in 3 feet or 2 feet or
Is
something,
there
I
an
don't know if there's a
alternative
real.
to split rail that's more,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
you know, like horse fence kind of stuff? I don't know what split rail seems to be. What we're used to.
Yeah, I think the guardrail would work good there. I just think maybe this could be a fence and we could move it in, just get it so that,
How high of a fence do you think? Would you be,
oh, I don't know. You have to remember, it's not really contained, alls it is it's a stop.
It's slowing down a 3-year-old so the parent can catch
That's
it.
exactly right. So a parent can.
right, so that's what they were thinking with the guardrail type of fence. It slows the kids down,
Can
but
climb
it still
over
keeps the park open. You can see, you know, if you're driving by, you don't want to see a fence there, and then you
No, I'm
can't.
not talking about putting a stockade fence up, it's a two-rail fence. Okay, do what you want. I just made the comment, it's a guardrail, it's not really a fence.
I kind of like what the high school did. It's kind of in between.
yeah,
It's, keeps people from walking out into the axis of the traffic, and is rugged enough to withstand whatever is pulling up against it. And it's visually, I like seeing the park open. I don't want to see the park boxed in.
What's the deadline?
I agree.
Do we know?
It might be, I think December is when they,
Okay.
I think.
So we'll look at other potential materials?
I don't wanna look at it.
You don't? Okay.
You want to go with this?
You guys, go ahead, I don't know. I just
It's,
made a
it's,
comment.
yeah, it's treated guardrail, 8x8 posts,
Maybe we
4x10
can
rail and concrete.
4 by 10.
Sounds like the same thing.
Yeah.
It really does.
Are you gonna mortise it, or you're going to,
It said mortise, what I saw.
You've already,
It said mortise, what I saw.
Can we see a color picture of one?
All right, let's get a
No,
color.
I'm not kidding
I
around.
can actually provide you a color
Yeah, yeah.
picture.
You can?
it's gonna be
Yeah.
green,
Okay, well, let's-
imagine pressure-treated lumber, I mean, that's what it is. It's pressure-treated yellow pine.
Yeah.
It sounds like, if it's what I'm thinking it is, I think it sounds great.
Oh.
I'm in favor of it if it's.
Okay. So, we wanna,
Well, my comment was, we don't have to get 3 bids, right?
well, I don't see why.
I
That's what I was
think
doing.
we need the estimate for the purposes of
Right.
the grant.
Right.
So you're gonna ask for
Them a dollar number.
$6,500, and if it comes out to be less, then it comes out to be less.
Yeah, and if it's more, then the club's gotta, you know,
Okay.
it's
So we
really just
want-
to defray the cost, you know.
Okay. So anybody wanna?
I make a motion to allow the Lions Club to use the village as a conduit to apply for this grant from the Frost Foundation. How's that sound?
So I'll second that. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
Who seconded?
Douglas? He abstained.
I
I
abstained.
second.
Who seconded?
I did.
Who did?
Okay. Get that done. Water and sewer adjustments, what do you guys wanna make those? What, Pat?
Did Scott, what was your vote?
I voted yes.
Okay. Just make-
Still like to see
You
the
wouldn't
color
know based
picture.
on his comments.
Trying to have a lively debate since I missed one
One of you
tonight.
guys got the water?
Can you pass that? No.
Seriously. What's that?
Farmers
That came-
market.
Farmers market. I emailed it to you.
Farmers Market is requesting to put out their banners, as they have in years past. Make the motion to approve the Farmers Market banners.
They're currently out.
I don't think are they currently out? Or are they replacing them? They're the same place they always are, they just crossed out the date on there,
Right.
handwritten. Is,
Yes, same as last year.
yeah, is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Who's got the water and sewer adjustments?
Who's with your treasurer's report?
What's that?
Who's with your treasurer's report?
Oh. And they've already been looked at by Gary and Sean, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So one of you guys want to make a motion?
I make a motion to accept the water department
Can we make that water?
Adjustments.
adjustments, yes.
Can we make that water and sewer?
Sure, I'll amend it to say, I'll make a motion to accept the water and sewage department adjustments.
I second that.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
We're going to table the minutes. Anyone see them?
Nope.
Okay, table the minutes. Make a motion to enter executive
Talk
session.
about these things.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the executive session and resume the regular session.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Camp?
Yes. After interviewing several candidates for the wastewater position, we found Stuart Bacon to be a worthy candidate. And I'd like to make a motion that we offer employment to Stuart Bacon at the hourly rate of $17.50, conditioned upon a clean background check and reference check.
A second. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody got anything else? I'd like to make a motion to close the meeting.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.